Inside a grand hall, women danced for a group of men feasting. Suddenly, a man in black robes with a long beard shouted, "Grand Tutor." Another woman, holding a plate of berries, looked up in awe, saying, "The falling fire from the sky is a divine sign, an auspicious omen. It looks like it's falling toward our Grand Tutor's manor." The Grand Tutor, a man with a long white beard and black robes, stood on a rooftop, looking out at the city. He noticed the fiery objects falling from the sky and muttered, "This is." He looked up to see two figures in the sky, surrounded by swirling energy, one golden and one purple. One of the figures, a man in dark robes, yelled, "Dao Xuanzi. Don't you push me too far." The Grand Tutor watched the two figures clash in the sky, realizing they were cultivators. Below him, the people in the hall were in a frenzy, shouting, "Cultivators! An immortal master! An immortal master has appeared! It is an auspicious omen." The Grand Tutor's face was filled with shock and disbelief as he thought, "How can this be?" The Grand Tutor, a man with long dark hair and a white robe, glared at Ku Hong. He demanded, "Ku Hong, did you really think I'd let your Jixiao, Suanwu fled to true immortal extinction? Hand over the cultivation method you stole today, or this won't end until one of us is dead." Ku Hong, a muscular man with long brown hair and a light robe, laughed. He said, "A joke. It's precisely because I lack a core formation method that I've been stuck at the golden core establishment stage for nearly 100 years. Now my lifespan limit is near. Why would I, who is about to turn to dust, hand over this core formation method, hoping for you to pass it over to another?" The Grand Tutor replied, "That's right. The golden core formation path is a dead end. Though there are many cultivation paths in this world, there are far more cultivation methods beyond the core formation establishment stage. Since it's come to this, with the path to longevity right in front of me, how could I possibly let you go?" Ku Hong laughed again, a golden aura surrounding him. He said, "How long ago we were brothers for 100 years. We've relied on each other for a mere chance at survival. I know I am not your match. It seems I won't be escaping my fate today. However, there are so many mortals in this place. I wonder, can you withstand such a dense concentration of the immortal mortal miasma?" The Grand Tutor, holding a glowing purple sword, yelled, "Ku Hong, what do you think you're doing?" A massive golden dragon formed around Ku Hong, who then said, "If you can't handle the power of the immortal mortal miasma, perhaps I can find a chance to live." The golden dragon exploded, unleashing a powerful force of light and fire. The explosion sent Ku Hong flying, and he crashed into the ground, surrounded by his family. He looked up, his face filled with anger, and yelled, "Damn it." He lay among the rubble, groaning in pain. He coughed, his gaze falling upon the bodies of his wife and children, who lay dead and bloody around him. He coughed again, his voice filled with sorrow, "My wife, my children." The once busy and rich city of Chuanjing was now a burning hell. Everywhere he looked, he saw nothing but mangled bodies and ruined buildings. He thought about how he was the only one left alive. He muttered to himself, "All of this, every bit of it, is because of the two cultivators who suddenly appeared." He laughed, a bitter sound. He wondered how there could be cultivators in this world. He remembered how, as an official, he used his power to search for any signs of the immortal path. After becoming the Imperial Tutor, he searched the entire world. He searched from the frozen sea in the north to the South Ocean, and from the ruined mountains in the east to the linked mountains in the west. He found no evidence of immortals in all of Great Chuan. He had already given up and grown old. He wondered if the two people who appeared were immortals, and where they came from. He felt a strong sense of despair, thinking that fate was messing with him. Suddenly, a powerful old man with a long white beard and hair, wearing a dark robe, appeared. He was surrounded by blue lightning and glowing symbols. The old man called out, "Huanjin." As he spoke, a bright blue light burst forth and a message appeared. "When the true is made false, the false becomes true. Charging complete. Virtualize current scenario and retrieve initial anchor point." The old man explained that Huanjin was his unique treasure, able to turn reality into virtual reality. He said it turned everything into a simulation, like a dream. His anchor point was the moment he first came to this world. He realized that this was his second life since he came to the Great Chuan Nation. In his first life, he had big dreams but was just a normal person. He wanted to be a high-ranking official but failed the exams many times. He eventually gave up on being an official and started a small business. He became a rich family head, got married, had kids, and lived a simple life. He lived a full, simple life. It wasn't until he was old and on his deathbed that he finally awakened the unique treasure, Huanjin. This was the start of his unstoppable rise in his second life. The Huanjin system allowed him to restart his life and return to a breakpoint to begin anew. However, he couldn't restart just yet. He still had important things to do in this life. He ordered his subordinate to relay his command. The garrison camp stationed outside the city was to rush to Chuanjing and maintain order in the disaster's aftermath. The subordinate acknowledged the order. He knew that most of Chuanjing's buildings were destroyed. After his trusted garrison camp took control of Chuanjing, they could expedite the post-disaster reconstruction. More importantly, he could stay in the barracks to oversee the cleanup efforts and secretly send people to investigate the whereabouts of the two cultivators. 1 month later, the ruined city of Chuanjing had only just begun to recover a semblance of life. Several months later, the city was still slowly recovering. A subordinate subordinate reported to the Grand Tutor that there was still no news of the two cultivators. The Grand Tutor, a man with long white hair and a beard, felt a pang of disappointment. He thought he shouldn't have gotten his hopes up about this. The Grand Tutor, his long white hair and beard flowing with energy, looked defeated. He thought, in that case, I have nothing left to cling to in this life. He called out to someone named Hyunjin, his voice filled with a strange command. Virtualize current scenario and return to the initial breakpoint. A voice from within the energy responded, yes. A man with dark hair and a serious expression, surrounded by glowing blue energy, appeared. He looked up at the Grand Tutor's ethereal form and spoke the names, Dao Xuanzi. Ku Hong, the Grand Tutor, still a glowing blue figure, told the man, in 50 years, I will still be waiting for you in Zuxianting. Hyunjin, restart a new life, return to the first year of the breakpoint. The man, Hyunjin, understood. He declared, riches and honor are but fleeting clouds to me. In the next life, I will hunt the immortals. As he spoke, he was pulled into a swirling vortex of energy. The story begins with a captivating image of a man and a woman, their faces close, hinting at a deep connection. The title, My Simulation of Immortality, is displayed below, setting the stage for a grand tale. Narrative then shifts to a scene where a man, looking distressed, recoils from a woman holding a bowl. A blue notification box appears, stating, you returned to Anchor Year 1. Overjoyed, you acted out, and were almost forced by your aunt to drink exorcism water from the village witch. The man, now composed, is shown writing. Notification continues. Half a year later, you took the imperial examination and placed low in the 30. You ultimately became a county magistrate, bringing honor to your ancestors. The story progresses rapidly. Anchor Year 2, you took the provincial exam and passed. You performed exceptionally well, achieving the first place in the second rank, and were bestowed the title of Jurin. The man is then seen in a more formal attire. Anchor Year 3, you pulled strings in Chuanjing and became the prefect of county magistrate for Jiangnan Wen County. Another blue box appears. Anchor Year 4, you began to cultivate your trusted inner circle. The man is shown with a group of people. Anchor Year 5, you successfully researched and created explosives and matchlock rifles. A rifle and explosives are displayed. Anchor Year 6, you took refuge after the rebellion against Prince Langya's manor. You saved Prince Langya's family. Prince Langya was deeply grateful to you. The notifications continue to detail his rise. You were promoted to prefect of Jianghua Prefecture and married the daughter of the Vice Minister of Rights. He is shown with a woman in a red dress. Anchor Year 7, your wife bore you a son. The man is shown with his wife and child. Anchor Year 10, Princess Langya gave birth to a son. You personally visited to offer congratulations and presented a carefully prepared gift. The story takes a dramatic turn. Anchor Year 15, the emperor died. Prince Langya inherited the throne, changing the era name to Xuanjing. You were appointed as the Minister of War and ordered you to lead troops to suppress rebellions. He is seen in a position of power. Anchor Year 18, you wiped out the rebellious forces for Xuanjing, reclaimed your military power from the Minister of War, appointing you Grand Tutor to the Crown Prince. He is shown sitting on a throne. Anchor Year 20, the Empress was suddenly implicated in a witchcraft incident, stripped of her position and confined to the cold palace. She secretly sent you a letter asking for your help, and you decisively agreed. In the same year, the Emperor of Xuanjing passed away. The officials brought back the Empress and the Crown Prince, who then became the new emperor known as Kangning. By Anchor Year 26, you were made Grand Tutor and Grand Guardian, reaching the peak of official power. You used this power to get rid of your enemies in the imperial court. By Anchor Year 30, everyone knew only of the Grand Tutor, not the emperor. In Anchor Year 31, the Empress Dowager gave birth to your son. Then, a series of tragedies struck. In Anchor Year 38, Emperor Kangning died from sadness. In Anchor Year 40, the Empress Dowager died of sickness. In Anchor Year 45, your wife passed away. In Anchor Year 46, your oldest son died from sickness. Finally, in Anchor Year 50, two immortal beings came from a dark abyss, destroying Xuanjing. You barely escaped with your life. Simulation ended, and a blue screen appeared offering 4 choices. Keep an item, keep your cultivation level, inherit a memory from someone close, or skip all to charge faster. He questioned if what he experienced was real or just a very convincing illusion. He decided to look at the 4 options. He thought the first 2 options, keeping an item or cultivation, were straightforward. However, he realized that in this past life, he was just a normal human, so cultivation was not an option. He then looked at the 3rd option, inheriting the memory of someone closely related to him. He thought this option was too uncertain. He realized that the 4th option, which was to give up the other choices to speed up the charging progress, was the most stable. He knew that his virtualization needed charging, and when he received a fatal blow, the system would use the charging progress to protect him. This was how he had escaped death many times in his previous life. He told himself that the 4th option was the safest and most stable choice, so he decided to speed up the charging progress. A screen popped up, showing his name, Lai Fan, his current realm as mortal physical, his age as 20/86, and his mental age as 166/1056. His virtualization charge progress was at 30%. He thought about how he had lived 3 lives, totaling 166 years. He also noted that his mental age limit had increased from 900 years in his last life to over 1,000 now. He realized that carrying too many memories could push one's mental endurance to its limit, potentially crushing the soul, a phenomenon he called the erosion of time. However, he knew that the mental age limit would increase as his mental fortitude strengthened. He declared that as long as he stepped onto the path of cultivation, none of this would be a problem. He decided that the goal of this life was to learn the secrets of cultivation from 2 cultivators. He knew that in 50 years, they would descend upon Xianling, and with proper preparation, he might just have a chance of winning. He thought about the cultivators and how they spoke of immortal mortal miasma. He wondered if this was something he could rely on, besides guns and explosives, to fight them. He knew he couldn't just wait for 50 years. He decided to send people deep into the ruinous abyss in the east, where the cultivators came from, to investigate. He reflected on his past life, where he often woke up feeling empty and confused, even in the Empress Dowager's bed. He felt that having no goal was the most frightening thing. He knew that in his past life, he had reached the peak of what a mortal could achieve. There was nowhere higher to go. He felt that even in another life, it would be the same. He remembered how power and pleasure became tasteless after experiencing them so many times. He even thought that after some future reincarnation, he might have chosen to end his own life. But then, the appearance of the 2 cultivators showed him a new possibility, a strange and alluring world beckoning to him. He declared, "I want to cultivate. I want long life. No one can stop me." He then addressed the cultivators, Dao Xuanzi. "Ku Hong, see you in 50 years. With 2 lives worth of experience, Yi Chuan's journey was smooth. He easily passed the imperial exams. His essays, filled with decades of knowledge, were far better than anything he wrote in his past life. He ranked first in all the exams, provincial, metropolitan, and palace. His fame shook the world. Even though he could have taken a high position in the imperial court, Yi Chuan chose to become an official in Wen County. His request was approved. Due to his fame and his deep understanding of the officials' personalities, he quickly took control of Wen County. He then started promoting and training trusted people from his past life. In the 4th year, Yi Chuan secretly found someone to act as Prince Langya's body double and trained him. In the 5th year, he ordered his subordinate to pretend to be a bandit and attack Prince Langya's home. He pretended to rescue them, but secretly, he coordinated with his people inside to kill Prince Langya's family. The body double then took Prince Langya's place. From then on, Yi Chuan secretly controlled Prince Langya's manor. In the 9th year, the wedding of Prince Langya and the chief grand scholar's granddaughter, Princess Langya, happened as planned. That night, Yi Chuan entered the bridal chamber and slept with Princess Langya. In the 10th year, Princess Langya gave birth to a son, who was Yi Chuan's own child. It was anchor year 35, and Yi Chuan, the grand tutor, was at his manor. He was talking to a hooded man, asking, "So the fog over this ruinous abyss dissipates for half a day every 15 years. The hooded man, kneeling, confirmed, reporting to the grand tutor that is correct. The immortal-seeking camp was ordered to watch the ruinous abyss and observe day and night. We finally made a breakthrough a few days ago." He continued, "After the great fog dispersed, a faint light could be seen shining from the bottom of the abyss. He used a telescope to observe and actually discovered an inverted landscape. He explained that while everyone saw something a little different, they all saw magnificent structures hidden among rising mountains. He went on to describe towering cities with millions of people, and even a city in the sky, filled with rare beasts flying around." Yi Chuan, with a stern look, asked, "So they really did come from the ruinous abyss? Have you found a way to get to the bottom of the abyss?" The hooded man looked ashamed, saying, "Your subordinate is incompetent. We tried various methods, but alas, as soon as we descend to a certain depth, we are shredded by a sudden astral wind." He added that the astral wind was so strong even their best armor couldn't stand against it for a moment. A hooded figure with long silver hair stood facing away from the man, his back to the viewer. He let out a sigh, then turned to look at the full moon in the night sky. He thought, "It seems I'll just have to wait for you two." The scene then shifted to a wide shot of Chuanjing, the capital of the great Chuan nation, in anchor year 50. The city was vast, with many traditional buildings under the glow of the moon. Suddenly, 2 powerful energy attacks clashed in the sky above the city, one a swirling purple and blue, the other a fierce orange and red. 2 figures were fighting. One, with long dark hair and a stern expression, was surrounded by purple energy. The other, with spiky hair and a fiery aura, lunged at him, shouting, "Dao Xuanzi, don't you push me too far." The fight continued, as the fiery figure unleashed a barrage of flaming projectiles at the purple energy user, who was also in the air. Suddenly, a new figure appeared in the sky. He had long, wild hair and a furious expression. Golden energy swirled around his fists as he yelled, "Who dares to launch a sneak attack?" Suddenly, a group of soldiers appeared below, aiming their rifles at Yi Chuan and the other person in the sky. They fired, sending a barrage of glowing bullets upwards. Yi Chuan, with his long dark hair and stern face, extended his hand. He wondered what these tiny metal pellets were as he effortlessly stopped the bullets midair, surrounding them with a golden aura. He then flicked his wrist, sending the bullets back towards the soldiers. He thought about how interesting it was to see intricate mechanical devices and explosive power used in place of spiritual energy. He realized that for immortals, this land of mortal extinction was a strange and unique place. He held up one of the rifles, now glowing golden. He felt it was a pity that these weapons were only effective in this place, where the great Tao was incomplete. Outside this land of immortal extinction, he knew it would just be useless scrap metal. He looked down at the soldiers, who were now engulfed in flames from the returned bullets. He thought, mere mortals daring to make a move against us cultivators. He felt a hint of pity for them, but then realized they were just seeking their own death. With a determined look, Yichun declared, "Tao art, fire dragon's roar." A massive, roaring golden fire dragon erupted from him, heading towards the soldiers below. The golden fire dragon crashed down, creating a massive explosion that shook the ground. Flames erupted everywhere, turning the battlefield into a fiery inferno. The man with short dark hair and a stern expression watched, surprised. He wondered what was happening. Yichun, with his long red hair, looked shocked and frustrated. He thought, what's going on? That fire dragon's roar of mine is fundamentally not something mortals can withstand. He looked down at the burning battlefield, where many soldiers were still standing despite the flames. He wondered, why are there still so many people alive? Another man with long dark hair and wearing a white robe held out his hand. Red liquid like blood dripped from small metal objects in his palm. He explained, these hidden weapons were soaked in mortal blood. After you were tainted by the immortal miasma, your Tao arts were weakened. He continued, we were ambushed the moment we arrived, and the enemy even used the immortal miasma. They were clearly prepared. He concluded, this place is bizarre. We shouldn't stay long. Then, with a determined look, he commanded, go, and both he and Yichun flew away from the burning village. As they flew, a giant ghostly face appeared in the sky, its mouth open in a menacing roar. It boomed, Dao Xuanzi, Ku Hong, if you two flee today, tomorrow, the news that you obtained a core formation method will spread throughout the entire cultivation world. Ku Hong, a man with long dark hair, looked shocked. He thought, how is that possible? Only the two of us know about obtaining the core formation method. How could the news have leaked? Who is it? Suddenly, a barrage of blood-red projectiles rained down from the sky, targeting the two flying men. Yichun, his body now engulfed in flames, roared, you're courting death. Ku Hong, his eyes wide with panic, yelled, not good, Ku Hong. Dodge quick. The ground below them exploded in a shower of blood and debris as the projectiles hit, leaving a trail of destruction. The ground was soaked in blood as the remaining warriors closed in on the two injured men. One of the warriors, standing tall, declared, Immortal Masters, our Grand Tutor has an order. If you two surrender, be spared. The man on the ground, his face and clothes covered in blood, looked up with a pained expression. He muttered, Hess, surrender. His eyes widened in fear and anger as he clutched a ring. He knew this was the end. With his last ounce of strength, he pushed the ring into the hand of the other injured man, who was lying beside him. Take my storage ring. Go, he whispered, his voice fading. As the man died, a golden dragon shimmering with light rose from the burning ruins below, roaring fiercely into the sky. As the man lay dead, a bright light shone from his body. Someone thought that his body was dying and his Tao vanished, returning to the heavens. Another man, covered in blood, stood before a fiery scene. A voice called out to him, Immortal Master Dao Xuanzi, our Grand Tutor has no intention of fighting you to the death. If you give up resisting, our Grand Tutor guarantees your life. Dao Xuanzi, a man with long white hair and a beard, looked at the burning area. He thought, when Ku Hong died just now, I seemed to hear a strange voice from the sky. He continued his thoughts, but that voice was no longer important, because hunting immortals in this life is already hopeless. I didn't expect the immortal miasma to be so lethal to cultivators. The bloody man, still standing amidst the flames, looked at the others around him. He said, I do not know who you are, nor do I know your purpose. Today, we brothers were plotted against by you, resulting in death and the loss of our Tao. There is nothing more to be said. His eyes glowed with a fierce blue light as he declared, however, I cannot accept this. He continued, his voice filled with disdain. Hiding behind mortals and using immortal miasma is a despicable act scorned by all cultivators. My brother Ku Hong died at the hands of someone like you. I feel it was not worth it for him. As he spoke, he began to float upwards, leaving the ground. He then said, you have all seen my brother's foundation establishment mystical object. He looked down at the crowd, his eyes glowing. Now I invite you all to take a look at mine. He rose higher into the sky, his long black hair flowing around him. He declared, with the wonders of heaven and earth, I build my Tao foundation. A massive, jagged, dark stone structure glowing with power appeared in the sky, dwarfing him. My Tao foundation is named Dao Xuan. Then with a powerful burst of purple energy, he announced, I have a sword. I invite you all to view it. The old man, Huanjin, lay defeated. A system message popped up. saying this simulation has ended. Yi Chuan, still in the simulation, felt a surge of power. He realized he had reached the peak of the Foundation establishment stage. He knew that if it weren't for the immortal mortal miasma, even those who had been reborn many times and had countless plans wouldn't be a threat to him. He looked at the image of the dead Ku Hong. He didn't expect the immortal mortal miasma to kill Ku Hong and make his Dao vanish. He thought about how Ku Hong and Dao Xuanzi called each other brothers of 100 years. He had thought it was just talk, but now he realized their bond was truly special. Yi Chuan saw the memory of Dao Xuanzi warning Ku Hong when they were attacked. Ku Hong, knowing he couldn't escape, willingly gave his core formation method to Dao Xuanzi. Dao Xuanzi, seeing Ku Hong die, was so upset that he sacrificed himself to strike out with a powerful sword art. This showed their extraordinary friendship. He understood that the Golden Core Dao path is often walked alone. Even though there are many cultivators in this world, few reach the Foundation establishment stage. He thought that the Golden Core Dao path is meant to be cultivated with others. Yi Chuan decided that no matter how dangerous the path ahead was, he wouldn't give up. With Huenjin's help, and if he was careful enough, nothing would stop him. He remembered that last time he tried to fight both of them at once. This time, he could choose to win over one of them. The story then shifts to another character, Lai Fan, who is contemplating his long journey. He thinks about how his mental age has increased, nearing its limit. He reflects that this is his 5th life, making his path to immortality incredibly difficult. He hopes the next 50 years won't be wasted. The scene changes to the ruinous abyss in Anchor Year 35. Lai Fan explains that based on his past experiences, the dense fog over the abyss clears every 15 years. He has come to see it with his own eyes. After an unknown amount of time, a huge amount of white fog burst from the ruinous abyss, shooting up into the sky like a reverse waterfall. This powerful wind lasted for about 15 minutes before the thick fog finally cleared. Lai Fan, now dressed in a long, dark robe with fur trim, stood on a rocky cliff looking down. He took out a telescope to look at the bottom of the ruinous abyss. He remembered that the scene at the bottom of the abyss is different for everyone who looks. As Lai Fan peered into the abyss, he saw a desolate, ruined landscape. A chilling message appeared before him: the immortal Dao is dead. Lai Fan, looking like a wise old man with a long beard and a fancy hat, stared at the desolate scene. He thought about the chilling message: the immortal Dao is dead, and wondered what terrible events had unfolded in this place and what had happened to the entire cultivation world. In the 15th anchor year in Chuanjing City, a man with long dark hair lay on the ground. Another man with wilder hair and a muscular build stood over him, yelling, "Dao Xuanzi, you've gone too far." Suddenly, a figure in white robes appeared from above, surrounded by a flurry of golden projectiles. Below, a group of smaller figures waited. The man in white declared, "Ku Hong, you brat. By order of immortal master Dao Xuanzi, we have been waiting for you." The muscular man, Ku Hong, looked shocked. He thought, how is that possible? Could Dao Xuanzi have known I would flee here? He then noticed the golden energy around him and exclaimed, "Immortal mortal miasma." He looked up at the man in white robes, who was now attacking him with more golden projectiles. Ku Hong shouted, "Dao Xuanzi, you are truly despicable." Ku Hong was furious. He thought, what's going on with these mortals? Why are they attacking Ku Hong under my banners? And they can even use the immortal mortal miasma. He then realized, this place is rather strange, Ku Hong. These mortals are not under my command. The man in white robes confronted Ku Hong, who was now standing on a swirling blue energy. The man in white said, "How can immortal master Dao Xuanzi turn his back on us like this? We agree that as long as we helped you kill this Ku Hong here and seize his core formation method, you would lead my clan out of this immortal forsaken land." Ku Hong, now looking enraged, yelled back, "Still say it's not you. Besides you and me, who else in this world would know about the core formation method?" The man in white, Dao Xuanzi, thought about how Ku Hong knew about the core formation method. He knew that because of this, they had angered the immortal master. He then thought that the public's anger was boiling, and if the immortal master couldn't keep his reputation, he would soon be without a burial place. Suddenly, Dao Xuanzi noticed something and his eyes widened. He yelled, "I've found you." A burst of purple energy erupted from him, aimed at Ku Hong. Ku Hong in turn shouted, "Shameless villain, shut your mouth." The purple energy exploded around Ku Hong. Dao Xuanzi, now looking a bit worried, wondered if the immortal master intended to silence them by death right now. He then saw a dark, box-like artifact appear, surrounded by purple energy. He thought to himself, what Dharma artifact is this? This person is surprisingly cautious. Ku Hong, now engulfed in flames, looked down at Dao Xuanzi and declared, "Dao Xuanzi, we have known each other for 100 years, yet I never thought I had misjudged you so. You want the core formation method, don't stoop to so many underhanded tricks." He then prepared for battle, shouting, "I won't run anymore. If you have the skill, come and take it." Dao technique, Flame Dragon's Wrath. Ku Hong, now a giant made of fire, unleashed his Flame Dragon's Wrath attack. A huge, fiery dragon head shot out from him, aiming straight for Dao Xuanzi. Dao Xuanzi, with a smirk, drew his sword. It glowed with a powerful purple light, ready to meet the incoming attack. The purple sword beam shot forward, clashing with the fiery dragon. The impact created a massive explosion of light and energy. From a distance, the other cultivators watched the intense battle. One of them, seeing the power of Dao Xuanzi, thought that Dao Xuanzi was fickle and vindictive. He knew if Dao Xuanzi won, there would be no escape for them. He then shouted a command to his sons, telling them to help Ku Hong deal with Dao Xuanzi. Ku Hong, still engulfed in flames, grew even larger and more intense. He thought about the saying that those who commit many injustices are doomed to self-destruction. He also thought that Dao Xuanzi, who always prided himself on being noble, would also break faith and suffer a backlash. Dao Xuanzi, his face twisted in anger, screamed, "You fool!" Dao Xuanzi, with a wild grin, boasted about his new Dao technique, saying it was perfect for sending his opponent away. He then unleashed his Dao technique, Imprisoning Dragon, which trapped his opponent in fiery chains. His opponent, however, was not easily defeated. With a furious shout of "Break for me," he channeled purple energy, his eyes glowing intensely. He broke free, and a massive purple sword appeared, striking the ground with an explosive force, sending Dao Xuanzi flying. Dao Xuanzi, shocked and enraged, screamed his opponent's name, Dao Xuan. Suddenly, an even larger sword, glowing with a golden light, descended from the sky, threatening to crush Dao Xuanzi. Ku Hong, a man with fiery energy surrounding his hands, yelled, "Let me see whether your Dao Xuan is more formidable or if my Q Dragon Staff is superior." Dao Technique, Dragon Transformation. He transformed into a massive golden dragon, its body wreathed in flames, and charged at the giant sword. Suddenly, several other cultivators, their hands glowing with fire, appeared and shouted, "Immortal Master Ku Hong, we shall lend you a hand." But before they could help, a massive burst of red energy exploded, engulfing them. A pained scream echoed, "Aorg." The red energy formed into thorny vines that wrapped around the cultivators, twisting and crushing them. Ku Hong, trapped, realized, "This is my Q Dragon branch." The narrator explained that Dao Xuanzi, a strong cultivator, had been killed by Ku Hong. Now Ku Hong's body was also destroyed, and his spiritual energy scattered to the heavens. The giant golden sword, the Dao Xuan, remained, its power still immense. As the dust settled, a new voice echoed through the air. It was the same voice that had spoken when Ku Hong died. The voice called out Dao Xuanzi. A man with long dark hair and a muscular build, wearing armor, looked around. He was Lai Fan, the Immortal Master. He greeted the voice. "I am Lai Fan, greetings, Immortal Master. I implore the Immortal Master's mercy to save the lives of the 1,000 souls of my clan." The voice, coming from a white-haired man with a long beard and a staff, replied, "You were the one whose voice was echoing from all directions earlier. A mere mortal like you, actually daring to interfere in a battle between us cultivators." The white-haired man, his face stern, continued, "I was merely seeking a slim chance of survival. As I said before, if the Immortal Master had been defeated, my clansmen would surely not have escaped death." Lai Fan looked at the white-haired man. He thought, "Seeking a slim chance of survival. You think I would believe a man who isn't struggling to find a slim chance of survival? Before Dao Xuanzi, the Immortal Master promised me that if, for 100 years, Dao Xuanzi has always appeared to be a man of his word. But in reality, he acts without any hesitation when deceiving mortals. The great immortal suppression formation, an immortal formation even for us, leaving requires a great deal of effort. How could we possibly take mortals with us?" The white-haired man, looking surprised, asked, "What? You mean you don't know a way to leave this place either?" Lai Fan, standing among his armored guards, affirmed, "That's right." Lai Fan then led the white-haired man to an underground shelter, a more private place to talk. The white-haired man, still worried, asked if it was true that they couldn't take mortals out of this forsaken land. Lai Fan confirmed it, stating that the white-haired man was just a mortal and he had no reason to lie. He explained that maybe a powerful cultivator could break through the formation, but for someone at the white-haired man's level, it was impossible. The white-haired man looked distraught, asking if there was no hope for mortals to ever leave this world. Lai Fan explained again that to leave, one must pass through a powerful formation, which was impossible for a mortal. He then asked why the white-haired man, being so old, was still obsessed with leaving, suggesting he should enjoy being a local emperor. The white-haired man then asked if his descendants, if they could cultivate to Lai Fan's level, could leave. Lai Fan laughed loudly. He said that there was no spiritual energy in this place, making cultivation impossible. He added that immortals and mortals were separated, and the land was covered in a dark energy, making it impossible to cultivate. Lai Fan, still laughing, explained that for mortals to cultivate, they first needed to reconstruct their bodies and cleanse themselves of the dark energy. He warned that without this, even if the great Tao was right before them, they could never touch it. The old man, with wide, angry eyes, asked if there was truly no way, repeating Lai Fan's words, "Immortals and mortals are eternally separated." Lai Fan simply replied, "There really isn't. The old man, looking defeated, said that if Lai Fan had no further instructions, he would leave. Suddenly, a wave of dark energy, the immortal mortal miasma, burst forth from the old man, hitting Lai Fan and sending him flying. Lai Fan cried out in pain, surprised by the sudden attack. Lai Fan screamed in agony as the dark energy consumed him. The old man, now holding a staff, looked on. The story begins with a deep dive into the history of the immortal forsaken land of Ku Hong. A great change occurred thousands of years ago, but at first, no cultivators paid attention to the plague that spread among mortals. However, the plague eventually infected the first cultivator, gaining strength and spreading rapidly among other cultivators. The spiritual energy they relied on for survival became the vector for the plague's transmission, allowing it to spread throughout the entire cultivation world. For cultivators, a mild infection meant their cultivation base would regress and their realm would fall. A severe case meant losing their entire cultivation base, becoming no different from a mortal, and their body would perish, returning to the heavens. In their desperation, the cultivators blamed the mortals, launching a large-scale campaign of slaughter against them. But this campaign was quickly stopped. The plague didn't disappear with the death of the mortals. Instead, it seemed to have broken free, spreading the spiritual energy that filled the heavens and earth, leading to the demise of even more cultivators. Facing certain death, some cultivators began researching ways to treat and resist the plague. Others proposed the infamous Great Migration Plan. This plan involved banishing all mortals from the cultivation world to surrounding lesser worlds and shattered heavens, which lacked spiritual energy. They would then use spell formations to permanently isolate these mortals, preventing their return. The plan was to banish all mortals from the cultivation world. However, not all cultivator offspring had the ability to cultivate, so new mortals were born over time. These new mortals carried a shadow of the plague within them. This plague made it very hard for them to cultivate, so they had to purge it from their bodies first. This plague became known as the immortal mortal miasma. Legend says that to stop cultivators from going after these banished mortals, the areas where the mortals lived became known as the immortal forsaken lands. The old man, who was immortal, thought about how lucky it was to find a place like this. He wondered how many other immortal forsaken lands existed, and if cultivators were still willing to risk their lives to find them. He knew his lifespan was limited as a mortal. Even if he could live many lives, he would still be restricted by his mortal body. He was 70 years old, and his physical limit was 86. He felt that the chance of him becoming a cultivator in the next 16 years was almost zero. He wondered if he was destined to repeat the same life over and over again. He had waited for 300 years for this, and he couldn't believe it was happening. He questioned if there was truly no other way, but then firmly decided, no. The chained man, bruised and bloody, looked up as a voice asked, "What, you still haven't given up?" The voice continued, "So what if you manage to get out? At 70 years old, you still want to pursue immortal cultivation." An old man with a long white beard and a staff stood over him. He told the chained man, "Now that your cultivation base is completely gone, if you were to return to the cultivation world, could you resume cultivating?" The chained man looked shocked, asking what. The old man leaned in, his expression serious. He offered, "If you can help me find my way to the cultivation world, perhaps I will take you with me when the time comes." The chained man's eyes narrowed and he shouted, "You treacherous villain. Trying to trick me." The old man remained calm. "Whether it's the truth or a lie, it is, in the end, a glimmer of hope. Are you willing to give up this path to survival, to just grow old and die in this tiny place?" The chained man stayed silent, deep in thought. He thought, if I'm not mistaken, what they used back then to migrate the mortals should have been Dharma artifacts similar to flying arcs or flying shuttles. He continued to reflect. In ancient times, the cultivation world was teeming with artifacts. They were numerous and prominent, and it was incredibly prosperous. Such transportation-type Dharma artifacts were very popular. It's a pity that a great cataclysm befell heaven and earth later on. Every cultivator feared for their own safety and began to act alone. Flying arcs and shuttles were rarely seen after that. The old man with the long white beard and hair, wearing dark robes, looked shocked. He asked if the Great Cataclysm referred to the bizarre Great Plague. The chained man, covered in blood and grime, explained that the immortal mortal miasma was strange but not strong enough to destroy the foundation of cultivators. He added that the miasma spread because most cultivators had already died in a great calamity. The chained man continued, saying that the great Tao of the Golden Core could only have one person. He explained that many core formation methods existed, but most cultivators were stuck in the foundation establishment stage. The old man, holding a staff, looked at the chained man. He asked if this meant that immortal techniques could not be cultivated by more than one person. The chained man confirmed this, stating that immortal techniques could not be cultivated by multiple people. The old man remembered a time when there were no such limits. He recalled how countless great cultivation sects would spread their knowledge, taking in many disciples and teaching them their arts. Cultivators would seek advice from their masters when they faced problems. They could also spar with their fellow disciples, creating a lively and grand cultivation world. Then one day, the efficiency of cultivation dropped sharply. A young man, surrounded by a fiery aura, realized that the more people who cultivated the same method, the lower the cultivation efficiency became for everyone practicing it. Countless cultivators found they could not advance in their training. Their lifespans shortened, and they no longer hid the killing intent in their hearts. Masters, apprentices, brothers, and sisters all turned into deadly enemies in an instant. A disaster swept across the entire cultivation world. Anyone who practiced the same method became an obstacle, leading to a fight to the death. Even rogue cultivators who hid in deep mountains and secret realms could not escape. A man with purple hair, now chained, was told that cultivators practicing the same method could sense each other's location. An old man with a long white beard and a staff stood before him. The old man asked, "Since immortal techniques cannot be cultivated by more than one person, how do cultivators practice now? What is the cultivation world like today?" The chained man looked up and explained that today's cultivation world offered only a few choices. One was to join the Myriad Immortals Alliance, a group formed by many cultivators. You could exchange cultivation methods and items using contribution points, which you earned by accepting and completing missions or by trading with others. The second option was the Five Elders Council, a powerful organization led by 5 top figures. Anyone with the aptitude could join and choose a cultivation method, but they had to sign a contract and serve the council for a set period. The old man, confused, asked, "From your description, why does it feel like cultivation methods aren't scarce in the cultivation world?" The man, still bruised and bloodied, explained that the methods gained this way were all incomplete. He said that these methods were put together by powerful groups over many years, but they could only reach the peak of Kai condensation. He explained that to go further and establish a Dao foundation, one needed to switch to a new cultivation method. This was also true for realms beyond foundation establishment. The old man looked upset. He asked if he had to switch methods and start over every time he broke through to a new realm. He felt that all his previous efforts would be for nothing. The man assured him that wouldn't happen. He revealed that everyone who cultivates must practice a piece of the supreme primordial true scripture. He clarified that this scripture wasn't a cultivation method itself, but more of a secret technique. He explained that the scripture's purpose was to let a cultivator willingly give up their current realm without losing much. He showed a visual comparison. Someone without the scripture would cough up blood and look weak when dispersing their realm, but someone with the scripture would look strong and ready. He added that after giving up their cultivation and switching to another method, they could quickly catch up to their original realm. The old man was amazed, thinking such a miraculous method existed. He realized that this fragment appeared at a convenient time, as it was the only way cultivators in this world would accept constantly changing their cultivation methods. The old man, still chained and injured, thought about the difficulty of finding a true cultivation method. He remembered that Dao Xuanzi had died without knowing the real reason he had snatched the method and ran away. It wasn't just because it was a core formation method, but because it was a true method that could lead directly to the nascent soul realm. The old man with the white beard, Ku Hong, heard this and repeated, "Nascent soul. True method." After explaining some basic knowledge about the cultivation world, like how a cultivator's death can cause celestial phenomena, Ku Hong finally got to the main point. He told the chained man that he had heard rumors for thousands of years about mortals from the immortal lands secretly returning to the cultivation world. However, he admitted that these were mostly baseless rumors without concrete evidence. Ku Hong then looked intently at the chained man and said, "There's no smoke without fire. Sometimes rumors are the truth of the matter. As long as there is a sliver of hope, I will not give up." The old man then made an offer. "As long as you help me find the way to the cultivation world, not only will I release you and let you return with me, but I will also return all of your and Dao Xuanzi's belongings." The old man, with his long white beard, added that this included the nascent soul true method. The chained man, Ku Qingtong, with dirt and blood on his body, looked surprised and asked if the old man was serious. The old man simply replied, "Of course." Ku Qingtong, looking determined, agreed to help. So, with Ku Qingtong's help, the old man gathered historical books and records from all over the world. He worked hard to find clues about the Great Migration and the scattered pieces of ancient records. At the same time, the old man sent his army to dig up ancient tombs on a large scale, hoping to find any trace or clue. This caused a lot of complaints from the people, and officials tried to stop him, but he ignored them all. Unfortunately, too much time had passed since the Great Migration era, and the old man knew his lifespan was too short. 16 years passed in the underground secret chamber. He felt his end was near, and he had found nothing. The old man, looking frail and tired, knew his body was like a candle flickering in the wind, ready to go out at any moment. He decided that before he died, he should check the items inside his storage ring. The old man, with his bony fingers, activated his storage ring. A bright blue light pulsed from it. From the ring, a scroll appeared. It was called the Thousand Mysteries Jade Cosmos Golden Chapter, a cultivation method for the nascent soul realm. He also saw a rusty sword. The old man felt a pang of regret. He thought, "I'm still just a mortal without divine sense. I'm sitting on a mountain of treasures, but I can't enjoy any of it." He knew that the rusty sword, the rusted sword Dao Xuan, had lost its power because its previous owner had died. He felt a wave of sadness. Suddenly, a notification popped up in front of him. It said, Rechargeable item discovered. Rusted sword Dao Xuan damaged. Proceed with recharge. The old man looked shocked. The old man, with his long white hair and beard, stood before a rusty sword and a damaged talisman. A blue screen appeared, asking if he wanted to recharge the items. He chose yes. The rusty sword transformed into a glowing blue weapon, and a new blue screen showed the anchor charge progress at 1%, with one current anchor point. He learned that, when the anchor charge reached 100%, a second anchor point would unlock. This meant he could restart his journey from any of the anchor points he had created. He thought that if a second anchor point could be unlocked, it would make things much easier. He also believed that the world was full of wondrous items, and he just needed to find them. He felt that as long as he could escape this forgotten land and break free from his current restraints, he would be fine. He then looked at his ring, only to find a few spirit stones inside. He decided it was time to end this life and begin his truth returning. Lai Fan then activated his storage ring, and a torrent of treasures, artifacts, and scrolls burst forth into the room. He realized that he couldn't hold onto everything at once. He sighed, knowing he had to make a choice. He picked up a scroll, a nascent soul cultivation method, as his primary cultivation technique. System notification appeared, showing his new stats. Name: Lai Fan, Realm, Mortal, Physical Age 20/86, Mental Age 282/1109 Up, Void Transformation Charge Progress 0%, Anchor Charge Progress 1%, Current Anchor Points 1. Notification also stated that the Thousand Mysteries Jade Cosmos Golden Chapter was now bound to him. Lai Fan wondered if this meant the cultivation method would stay with him forever through his truth-returning cycles. He smiled, realizing this new development opened up many more possibilities for his plans. He remembered his last life, where his attempt to excavate ancient tombs to find a path to the cultivation world caused too much trouble. Even with his control over the imperial court, he faced a lot of opposition. He thought that if the court had supported him from the start, things would have been much easier. He held the scroll tightly, his eyes glowing with determination. He realized that if he started planning now, he could change the mindset of the entire world within 20 years. Time flew by, and Yi Chuan began his sixth life. He realized that his subtle actions were changing the world around him. In Anchor Year 5, the ancient texts he had introduced caused a stir. They were so well written and unique that they shocked the entire nation. The emperor even asked for them to be brought to the capital so he could read them. In Anchor Year 6, the emperor fell gravely ill, and all the imperial doctors were at a loss. Just then, a group called the Ancient Seeking School presented an elixir. The emperor consumed it. To everyone's surprise, the elixir worked like a miracle. The emperor made a full recovery in just one day. In Anchor Year 11, the Zhanghui prefecture uncovered a major tomb robbing case, arresting over 100 robbers. The prefect, Lai Tan, sent a memorial to the emperor, describing the case and asking for his judgment. A month later, the emperor's decree arrived. The robbers were to be enslaved and sent to the capital, not executed. The emperor fell ill again in Anchor Year 15, wishing to extend his life. He ordered a search for 1,000 boys and girls and pills of immortality. Unfortunately, the imperial court was filled with regret, and the trend of seeking immortality spread across the land, even among the common people. The main passage of the tomb stretched for hundreds of meters. Its walls were covered in bright, lifelike murals. Even though 1,000 years had passed, the paintings were still very clear. They reached the main burial chamber, which was 40 to 50 meters high and several thousand meters wide. The ceiling looked like the night sky, filled with thousands of glowing pearls. Mountain peaks rose one after another, surrounded by a sea of clouds. It was strange how this sea of clouds formed inside the chamber and never faded, even after 1,000 years. Invisible paths connected the mountain peaks, and everyone was amazed as they walked along. One of the men wearing armor thought, "These are truly the methods of an immortal." At the highest peak, there was a simple thatch hut, but the fields outside it were barren. As they got closer, they realized the thatch of the hut was actually woven from countless fine golden threads. The man in the long robe, who seemed to be in charge, ordered 2 of his armored guards, "You two go open the door." He then thought to himself, "Clearly this thatch hut is Yi Xing's coffin." The 2 guards responded, "Yes." They then pushed open the heavy door, revealing a mysterious blue light inside. The man with the beard looked intently at the tombstone, which read, "Tomb of Yi Xing, outer disciple of the Taihang sect." He thought that even though this person joined the Taihang sect, he remained just an outer disciple and never became immortal. He felt this person was likely exiled to this place by the cultivators. He noticed that even after death, the person still identified as an outer disciple of the Taihang sect, not an emperor. He remembered Ku Hong saying that all the sects in the world had disappeared during the Great Migration. This made him realize there was a bigger story behind all of this. He figured Yi Xing was probably asked by the Taihang sect to watch over the big move of people in this world. He wondered if he could find the flying ark used for that migration. The main burial chamber had nothing. He ordered his team to dig around the area. A few days later, news came in. A team member reported to the Grand Tutor that they found a record mentioning flying ark in a list of burial goods from a nearby tomb. The Grand Tutor, a man with long white hair and a beard, slammed his hand down, his face a mask of frustration. "It's like this again," he yelled, his voice echoing through the chamber. He continued to smash his hand down, his anger clear. "Every time I see a glimmer of hope, it ends up being unattainable. like flowers in a mirror and the moon in the water. The Grand Tutor stood in the middle of the room, surrounded by scattered objects, clearly upset. A hooded figure sat quietly on the floor watching him. The Grand Tutor remembered the reward that was promised, a reward to the world. Whoever finds clues related to the immortal arc will be ennobled as a marquis of 1,000 households. He looked at the hooded figure, found the tomb of an immortal, he asked, his voice filled with a mix of disbelief and hope. The hooded figure told him that a few days ago, people exploring an ancient tomb were attacked by a mysterious creature. There were many injuries and even some deaths. He explained that even with many experienced people, the ancient tomb was still untouched. The hooded figure then ordered, "Bring the immortal altar. Open the tomb at once." The hooded figures began to pour blood from buckets onto the ground, creating a bloody mess. The blood swirled and dissolved into the ground, revealing a hidden entrance. The hooded figure then instructed his soldiers to be careful during the excavation, and to report immediately if they found anything resembling a flying ark. The soldiers responded with a resounding yes. A moment later, one of the soldiers reported to the hooded figure, "Grand Tutor, there is an object resembling a flying ark among the burial goods." The hooded figure looked shocked and ran towards the tomb. The Grand Tutor, a man with white hair and a long beard, looked down at the amazing sight. He saw a large, empty boat, glowing with blue energy, sitting in the tomb. He couldn't believe his eyes. "This is a flying ark," he exclaimed. The man with white fur on his coat said that the small wooden boat was the flying ark he had been searching for. He understood the whole story after reading a message carved on the tomb wall by its owner before his death. The tomb's owner was Kyan Hong, a powerful cultivator. Over 3,000 years ago, he was hunted by his enemies and had to hide in this immortal forsaken land. This land had no spiritual energy, and he had no spirit stones. His cultivation got weaker every day. He thought that the mortals exiled here might have left behind a flying ark. So he searched for decades and finally found the tomb of Yizing. However, when he found the flying ark in the tomb, its main power spell was already broken. He didn't know how to fix it, so he gave up on leaving this land. A message on the wall said that if a later generation found his tomb and swept his grave, they could take one of 4 items from the cultivation world as a thank you. Man knew that only a cultivator would be able to arrive here because of the tomb's protective spell formation. He was eager to see what Kyan Chuan had left behind. He looked at a stone tablet and realized it was a wondrous item of heaven and earth, a halting steel fragment. He realized that the halting steel fragment was the item that had been guarding the tomb all this time. However, it was not reacting at all. He had used a lot of mortal miasma to enter the tomb, and now the fragment had likely been affected by it, turning it into an ordinary stone. He sighed and decided to look at the second item. He picked up 2 scrolls. One was the Lesser Truth-Returning Vastness Kai Condensation Stage Method, and the other was the Cloud Water Record Foundation Establishment Stage Method. Both showed that one person was currently cultivating them. His eyes widened in surprise and a little fear. He wondered how someone could already be cultivating these methods. He thought it could be a trap. He quickly dismissed the idea, realizing that more than 3,000 years had passed. He knew that even a golden core cultivator would have turned to dust by now, let alone a foundation establishment cultivator. But then, he wondered why someone was cultivating these methods. He looked closely at the scrolls, his face showing confusion and a bit of worry. He thought, could it be that the methods have a master copy? He then realized that after the Great Calamity, many cultivation methods were compiled by major powers like the Myriad Immortals Alliance and the 5 Elders Council. So there must be a master copy. He understood that when these major powers saw that no one was cultivating a method, they would bring it out again for people to redeem. He thought about how many owners these 2 methods must have had over the past 3,000 years. An old man with a long white beard and fur-lined robes carefully picked up an ancient-looking boat. He thought about how corrupt the world was. He held the boat, which was the Taehang Ark, a tool for migrating mortals. He was happy that after thousands of years, it was finally in his hands. He felt his wish was granted after hundreds of years of waiting. He knew the Taehang Ark was damaged, but he wasn't worried. He said that even if Kyan Hong and Lai Fan couldn't fix it, someone else could. 50 years later, a man with long dark hair and a stern face confronted another man, Ku Hong, who had a similar appearance. The first man, Dao Xuanzi, yelled at Ku Hong not to push him too far. Ku Hong asked if Dao Xuanzi thought he would just give up the cultivation method he found in the immortal forsaken land. He demanded the method, threatening consequences if he didn't get it. Dao Xuanzi questioned if a core formation method was worth fighting to the death over. Suddenly, a booming voice echoed from above, "Who's there? Such arrogance! Insolent!" The 2 figures looked up to see an old man with long white hair and a beard, dressed in black robes, standing on a balcony. The old man, who was Dao Xuanzi, looked down at them with a smirk. "Why don't you 2 come down for a chat?" The 2 men, Ku Hong and another man, looked at each other, then back at Dao Xuanzi. Dao Xuanzi laughed. "Ha ha ha, please." Dao Xuanzi raised his cup, a wide smile on his face. He explained, "Long ago, my ancestor said on his deathbed that in a future generation, 2 people might come from the east of the abyssal ruins and set foot in the capital, and that this would be the opportunity for our clan to escape this place. For thousands of years, my clansmen have been skeptical. To have it proven today calls for a grand toast." Ku Hong, a man with long brown hair, looked at Dao Xuanzi and asked, "May I ask your name?" Dao Xuanzi proudly declared, "This old man is Lai Fan." Lai Fan, with his long dark hair and white robes, looked at Dao Xuanzi. He asked about the ancestor who was active thousands of years ago, and what Dao Xuanzi meant by an opportunity to escape this place. Dao Xuanzi, with his white hair and beard, looked surprised and asked, "What? You two don't believe me?" Lai Fan's friend, a man with spiky brown hair and armor, spoke up. He said that the matter was too unbelievable. He explained that he and Lai Fan had traveled the cultivation world for 100 years and had never heard of any art that could predict events 1,000 years into the future. Dao Xuanzi then asked if they had ever heard of the Taiyan sect. Lai Fan's friend looked shocked and asked if it was the ancient sect famous for its deduction skills. Dao Xuanzi smiled, his long white beard flowing. He calmly told them to relax, confirming that his ancestor was indeed a member of the Taiyan sect. He continued, explaining that his ancestor joined the Taiyan sect because he disliked cultivation and was obsessed with deduction and calculation. This was fine until the Great Cataclysm forced all mortals to migrate. Even with his ancestor's early Kai condensation cultivation, no one could have forced him to take charge of the migration. However, seeing the panic among his family, he volunteered and brought his family to this place. The old man, with his long white beard, stood before the two men. He declared that no cultivator had set foot in this land for thousands of years. He knew they were the ones his ancestor predicted, the key to his clan's escape. He also said that when he saw them about to fight to the death over a core formation method, he had to stop them. The man in white robes, Ku Hong, smiled faintly. He said, "You must find us laughable, fellow Taoist, but you may not know that cultivation methods are hard to come by in the outside world. It's quite normal to turn on each other and fight to the death for a single scroll." The old man sighed, asking if it really had to come to this. He added that it seemed to be the case from Ku Hong's tone. He explained that before his son passed away, he handed down a cultivation method that directly led to the Golden Core realm. The man in white robes, Ku Hong, immediately brightened. He exclaimed that if they could obtain this method, then the two brothers wouldn't have to fight anymore. He then asked what the old man sought in return. The old man explained that his ancestor's lifelong wish was to return to the Taihang sect. He added that before his death, aside from this cultivation method, his ancestor also passed down a Dharma artifact called the Taihang Arc. Although it was damaged, his ancestor once used the art of Taihang to calculate that many years later, two cultivators would arrive in this place. One skilled in sword techniques, and one who loved artifact refinements. They could help his descendants repair the Taihang Arc and escape this forsaken land. Ku Hong, the man in white robes, exclaimed that this was spot on. He confirmed that his brother, the man in armor, was devoted to the Tao of artifact refinement, and his specialty was precisely sword techniques. The man in armor, Yi Chuan, looked thoughtful and wondered if this art of Taihang was really so incredible. He found it hard to imagine such unfathomable power with only a Kai condensation stage cultivation base. Ku Hong, the man in white robes, told Yi Chuan that talk was cheap. He invited Yi Chuan to follow him and see the method for himself. As they walked, Ku Hong looked at Yi Chuan and asked if he was still not satisfied, even after getting a core formation method. Yi Chuan, with a slight smirk, agreed, saying he wouldn't go over it then. Ku Hong then led Yi Chuan away, leaving the other man behind. They walked into a dark, rocky area. Ku Hong seemed surprised by something he saw. Suddenly, Ku Hong screamed, realizing they were in the presence of an immortal mortal miasma. The ground beneath them glowed red, indicating danger. The old man, Ku Hong, lay on the ground, seemingly injured. He spoke, emphasizing the need for caution as mortals protecting a great treasure. He said they had no other choice. He then addressed Yi Chuan, asking him to look at the cultivation method left by his ancestor. Ku Hong held out a scroll, revealing it to be the Thousand Mysteries Jade Cosmos Golden Chapter, Nascent Soul Realm Method. The text also showed that the current number of cultivators using it was 0. Yi Chuan's eyes widened in shock. He realized it was a nascent soul method, a powerful and rare technique. Ku Hong smirked, thinking everything was going as he predicted. He then wondered if he should have told the truth earlier, but decided against it, fearing Yi Chuan might have malicious thoughts if he knew it was an ancestor's formation method. Yi Chuan, with a sly smile, complimented Ku Hong's sharp mind. He then assured Ku Hong that his brother, Ku Hong, was an expert in artifact refinement and would help repair the Taihang Arc with all his might. Ku Hong, now visibly excited, laughed loudly. He promised to present the core formation method to Yi Chuan with both hands once the repair was done. The other man, with dark hair and a serious expression, thought to himself, so Lai Fan wasn't lying. He really has an ancestral core formation method. Yi Chuan confirmed, that's right. I saw it with my own eyes. The man's face twisted into a sinister grin. He thought, a mere mortal. I'll just take the method by force. The tall man with the long hair, Ku Hong, asked his companion if they should just take the Taiyan Arc by force, since its owner was just a normal person. However, His companion, the man with the long black hair, reminded him that the owner was a descendant of the Taiyan sect. He also mentioned the terrifying art of deduction the owner used earlier, suggesting he might have other tricks up his sleeve. The long-haired man explained that helping the owner repair the Taiyan ark wasn't a hard task, and there was no need to stir up trouble. He warned that if they took it by force, and the owner got desperate, it would be disastrous if he revealed his cultivation method was actually a nascent soul method. Next day, the owner handed the Taiyan ark over to Ku Hong and his partner for repairs. Ku Hong's partner, a man with a long white beard, was impressed by the Taiyan sect's ingenuity, noting that the ark's spell formations were beyond what they had learned. Ku Hong was excited, believing that if he could repair the ark, his artifact refinement skills would greatly improve. The owner, in turn, told them to feel free to ask for anything they needed for the repairs, and he would provide it. Repairing the ark took a long time, nearly a full year, even though it looked like a small wooden boat. On the day the Taiyan ark was finally repaired, the owner hurried to find Ku Hong and his partner. The old man with the long white beard, the owner of the ark, spoke to Ku Hong. He explained that flying the Taiyan ark needed someone with a high level of spiritual power, at least at the Kai condensation stage. He wondered if Ku Hong and his partner could do it for him. Suddenly, a bright light burst from the ark. Ku Hong and his partner, Dao Xuanzi, were already flying it, soaring high above the buildings. Ku Hong looked shocked. He told the old man that his methods were amazing, especially since he could control the ark, even though he was just a regular person. The old man laughed, stroking his long beard. He said it was a small trick and not worth mentioning. He also thanked Ku Hong and Dao Xuanzi for helping him escape after being trapped for 1,000 years. The old man then asked if they were ready to get the ark. Ku Hong and Dao Xuanzi stood ready, and Ku Hong replied that it had been prepared for a long time. 3 days later, Ku Hong and Dao Xuanzi came to say goodbye to the old man. Ku Hong explained that they needed to leave because there were no more spirit stones in the area. Staying longer would make their cultivation weaker. The old man smiled, telling them if they ever needed him, they could find him in the Kunyan mountain range. Ku Hong, a man with a stern face and spiky brown hair, presented a hand-drawn map to the old man. He explained that it was a map of the area around the Great Immortal Revering Formation, which he drew from memory. He apologized for the rough drawing, saying there were no blank jade slips available, so he had to use paper and a brush instead. The old man with long white hair gratefully accepted the map, thanking Ku Hong for his effort. After a few more pleasantries, Ku Hong and Dao Xuanzi transformed into 2 streaks of light, one golden, one purple, and shot into the sky, departing from the old man. As they flew through the clouds, Dao Xuanzi, a man with long dark hair, looked down at Ku Hong and remarked that Lai Fan, the old man, had a remarkable destiny. He noted that it was a pity Lai Fan's great limit was approaching, and he only had a few years left to live, even if he could return to cultivation. Dao Xuanzi continued, wondering why Lai Fan didn't try to achieve longevity, even if it meant fighting to the death. He then asked Ku Hong what cultivation method Lai Fan had given him. Ku Hong, with a confident smirk, replied that it couldn't possibly be the same method Dao Xuanzi had. He assured Dao Xuanzi not to worry, promising that once he returned, he would enter closed-door cultivation, break through to the golden core stage, and fulfill the 3 things he had promised him. As they flew over a vast chasm, Ku Hong remarked that the protective formation mist had not yet dispersed. He wondered aloud who would dare to venture through it. Suddenly, a figure with long brown hair and a fierce expression, engulfed in flames, plunged into the chasm. He laughed, shouting, "Ha ha ha! What is there to fear?" This daring individual was heading straight for the eastern abyssal ruins, a massive crater filled with swirling white mist. This person was Taehang Ancestor. He was an old man with a long white beard and hair, dressed in grand robes. He held a glowing orb of energy above his head. He thought about his age. There are still 14 years until the white fog disperses again, but I am already 71 years old. By then, I'll be 85. My great limit will be approaching, let alone being able to pilot the Taehang arc. He looked determined. I have nothing left to cling to in this life. Today, I will test the reality of this great immortal severing formation. He then piloted a large, ark-like vessel into the misty depths. The abyssal ruins were shrouded in a dense fog, creating a surreal and otherworldly atmosphere. As the Taehang arc entered, it created a powerful blue energy shield. Suddenly, as if it hit something, the hull of the Taehang arc began to shake violently. The elder, with his long white beard, looked around nervously. He realized they were in the astral wind layer. He knew that the wind blades here could easily tear a mortal's body apart. He felt relieved that the Taehang arc had a strong defensive shield, otherwise the consequences would be unimaginable. After half an hour, the Taehang arc finally broke through the astral wind layer. The vibrations stopped, and a bright light appeared ahead. The elder then began to tell his story. He spoke about how he had escaped a powerful formation and found a rare cultivation method. In just a few hundred years, he formed his golden core. He continued, saying that his cultivation path was smooth. 1,000 years later, he understood the Tao and ascended. He then shattered the barrier of the immortal realm and ascended to the god realm. He started as a miner, but after 10,000 years, he became the most powerful being in the God King realm. He then went through countless hardships to ascend to the primeval God realm, starting over as a low-level gatekeeper. He started from scratch, painstakingly. He woke up with a start, realizing he was no longer in the illusory light layer. He wondered if everything had been a dream, but then he noticed the arc had turned around. He looked out at the vast, cloudy landscape, realizing the arc had automatically navigated out of the illusory layer. He was now at the third layer, the immortal Forsaken Continent's inversion layer. He realized that even though he had lost consciousness, the Taehang arc had traveled to the inversion layer on its own. He thought about how he could let the arc control itself and just provide the power to accelerate. An intuition from the Taehang arc guided him, showing him the way. He followed its guidance and accelerated forward. As he followed the arc's direction, it smoothly arrived at the fourth layer, the flowing fire layer. The old man with the long white beard, Ku Hong, explained that the Taehang arc was created to move mortals thousands of years ago. He believed the person in charge left a secret way in the arc, allowing it to go through the immortal Forsaken Continent by itself. After seeing the arc work so well, Yichuan decided not to control it directly. He just gave it power and let it fly through the immortal Forsaken Continent on its own. It passed through the fifth layer, the profound ice layer, and then the sixth layer, the thunderstorm layer. The journey had some close calls, but no real danger. The arc finally reached the last layer, the darkness layer. Yichuan remembered Ku Hong saying that this layer wasn't very dangerous, just a dark area. He felt excited, knowing that once they passed through this, the cultivation world and 6 lifetimes of reincarnation awaited them. But just as he thought this, the arc flew into a huge, gaping mouth, full of sharp teeth and a long, green tongue. Suddenly, the simulation ended. Lai Fan, with glowing blue energy around him, gasped for air. He was confused, wondering what that thing was that swallowed his arc. He knew that Ku Hong, a powerful immortal, didn't encounter such a thing in the abyss. He wondered if this was a special trap just for mortals. He decided it was best to wait for the fog to clear, and for light to appear at the bottom of the abyssal ruins before exploring further. Even though he failed at the last moment, he felt the experience was very rewarding. The system showed his stats. Name Lai Fan, Realm Mortal, Physiological Age 20/86, Psychological Age 333/1113 up, Void Transformation Charge Progress 0%, Anchor Charge Progress 1%, Current Anchor Points 1. His bound items were the 1000 Mysteries Jade Taiyan Arc and the Cosmos Golden Chapter. After choosing to keep the Taiyan Arc, he immediately started his 7th life. In Anchor Year 4, he led his trusted subordinates to Kyan Hong's tomb. This time, he used a special spray to weaken the immortal mortal miasma, making the Hasting Steel Fragment unable to pierce through armor. He found a rechargeable item, Halting Steel Fragment, damaged, and decided to recharge it. He knew it was a shame it was still damaged, but the anchor charge increased by 25%. He thought that if he did this 3 more times, he would get a second anchor point. The other items in the tomb were not useful, so he ordered his men to seal the tomb and he left. In Anchor Year 5, he couldn't resist and returned to the eastern abyssal ruins. He stood at the edge of the deep, dark abyss, his long dark hair and blue robes blowing in the wind. He thought to himself, "I'll just take a look. I won't go down." He looked down into the darkness, a swirling void that seemed to pull him in. His eyes glowed red as he thought about his past life. If I were to pilot the Taeyuan Arc at this very moment, I could probably travel smoothly all the way to the immortal realm. He stepped closer to the edge, his mind racing. That's right, I've already waited this long. Do I really have to wait another 15 years? He took another step, his determination growing. So what if truth returning isn't fully charged? How can I achieve the great Tao if I'm this timid? His eyes burned with a fierce resolve. I already tested it once in my last life. As long as I'm careful to avoid that unknown monster in the darkness layer, I can get this damned place. The man stood on a rocky ledge, looking down into a massive, glowing hole. He thought to himself that as long as he carefully avoided anything that could stop him, he could leave this forsaken place. Suddenly, a chilling message appeared in the air. The path of immortality is dead. The man gasped, startled. He realized that countless voices had been trying to lure him into the abyssal ruins. He knew if it wasn't for the light from below, he would have been smashed to pieces. 15 years later, in Anchor Year 20, the man's truth-returning ability finally finished charging. With this new confidence, he returned to the abyssal ruins. He piloted the Taehang Arc, a small ship, through the stormy layer without any trouble. He stopped above a dark layer. A strong wind began to blow, and the wild thunderstorm, affected by this strange wind, started to calm down. Suddenly, a giant monster with sharp teeth and a huge mouth appeared from the dark layer. It shot a bright blue light from its mouth, trying to swallow Yichuan's book. Yichuan realized his guess was right. This monster was full of evil and wanted to eat anyone who came close. The monster continued to attack, trying to eat the book with its blue light. Yichuan, determined, told the book to go upward, further upward. The book then shot a purple light, trying to escape the monster. The monster chased the book, but it stopped at the thunderstorm layer. Yichuan thought, it stopped chasing at the thunderstorm layer. It stopped at the edge of the darkness layer. I can use the light from the thunderstorm layer to see what it really looks like. As the light from the thunderstorm layer shone down, Yichuan saw the monster's true form. It was a massive, dark creature with a glowing blue eye. Shocked, he exclaimed, "What the hell is that thing?" The old man, with his long beard and serious expression, thought about the massive whale. He couldn't believe how huge it was, especially compared to his small Taehang arc. He wondered why it always managed to find him every time he passed through. He knew he had to try other ways. Thankfully, he had many chances to try. He recalled the past 15 years, during which he had tried countless times to force his way through the darkness layer. Each time the whale would find him, but he noticed that the time it took for the whale to find him after he entered the darkness layer was getting shorter. He could only go back after a short fight with the giant whale. He remembered a time, anchor year 35, in the thunderstorm layer. He realized that the whale's appearance might be delayed by something, as it only found him after a while. This gave him a bit more time to reach the bottom of the abyssal ruins. This time, he decided to go all out and charge through at the fastest possible speed. He wanted to cross the darkness layer before the giant whale could even react. As he sped through, an illusory scene started to appear below, getting closer and closer. But then, the giant whale's terrifying cry rang out once again, confirming it had found him. Lai Fan knew it was too late to escape the whale. He quickly activated his truth-returning ability. A blue screen appeared, stating, "This simulation has ended." Below that, it offered choices for what to retain from the simulation. "Forget selection and accelerate the charging progress," Lai Fan commanded. Another blue screen popped up, showing his stats. His name was Lai Fan, Immortal. His physical age was 20 out of 86, and his psychological age was 368 out of 1116. He noticed that his psychological age hadn't increased. He thought to himself that he must have already reached the limit. Lai Fan, now back in his original form with dark hair tied up, smiled. "Good. I still have 748 years to squander," he said, seemingly content with the outcome. The scene shifted to a dark, rocky area. Lai Fan, now wearing a long red cloak, stood before a stone monument. "8th lifetime, anchor year 4. I opened Kyan Hong's tomb again," he narrated. He smiled. A blue notification showing his anchor charge progress had increased to 51%. At least this lifetime wasn't a complete waste, he mused, satisfied with the progress. 5 years later, the white mist was gone. The transformation was almost done, at 90%. But he knew that anything less than 100% wouldn't make a difference, so he had to wait patiently. 15 years later, in anchor year 20, he tried again but failed. 15 years after that, in anchor year 35, he tried again and failed again. He realized that these attempts weren't a complete waste. His control over the Taehang arc became much better. He shouted, "Turn." By anchor year 50, he was old. His mind and body were not as sharp as they used to be, so he knew he couldn't force his way through the darkness again. He decided to meet 2 old friends to see if they had any clues. He saw one friend surrounded by fire and another by blue energy. He heard his friend say, "Dao Xuanzi, don't you push me too far." Hearing this, he felt a bit nostalgic. He tricked them into coming to the Grand Tutor's manor by saying he had a new core formation method. After they had 3 rounds of drinks, he showed them a scroll with a painting of the giant whale. He asked them, "Have you two ever seen such a monster?" The Grand Tutor, a man with a long white beard, looked at the scroll with a serious expression. He explained that his ancestor once said that if he could escape this forsaken land, he wouldn't have to worry about anything else. He felt safe with his sect's arc, but the final layer where a giant whale lurks required extreme caution. One of the guests, a man with a bare chest and spiky hair, looked shocked. He asked how such a ferocious beast could exist in that dark, empty place and how he hadn't seen it. The Grand Tutor, still holding the scroll, turned to the other guest, a man in white robes, and asked if he knew about the beast. The man in white robes, Yichuan, explained that he had only seen records of it in an ancient text. He said that in ancient times, there was a sect called beast taming. This sect had no deep cultivation methods and relied solely on taming beasts, controlling exotic creatures to fight for them. He mentioned that this giant whale seemed to be one of the most famous exotic beasts controlled by the beast taming sect. The spiky-haired man then remembered, saying, "Now that you mention it, I remember. I think it was called a rift-splitting whale." The Grand Tutor, standing up and looking at both of them, asked if either of them knew how to avoid this rift-splitting whale. The spiky-haired man replied that he had only heard fragments about it and wondered how they could possibly know its habits, since such an exotic beast had disappeared from the cultivation world thousands of years ago. The Grand Tutor, a man with a long white beard, looked disappointed. He thought, "In the end, I still have to rely on myself, huh?" He remembered a past life. After giving his cultivation method to Dao Xuanzi and sending the 2 of them away, he chose to end that lifetime. In his 9th lifetime, he opened Kyan Hong's tomb again, hoping to absorb the hating steel fragment to power up. But unfortunately, the truth-returning technique had no reaction. He tried repeatedly from anchor year 20 to anchor year 50, but he couldn't break through the darkness layer. By anchor year 65, he was 85 years old, and his life was nearing its end. He knew he was too old to outsmart or fight the giant whale, so he decided not to force it. He would give up control of the Taehang arc and let it slowly drift towards the bottom of the abyssal ruins from the start. As the arc drifted, it passed through various layers. The astral wind layer, the illusory layer, the inversion layer, the flowing fire layer, the profound ice layer, the thunderstorm layer, and the darkness layer. The old man's eyes widened in surprise and a little fear. He noticed the rift-splitting whale hadn't appeared this time. He realized he was nearing the very bottom of the abyssal ruins. He knew he couldn't miss this chance and decided to go full speed ahead. The ark shot forward, leaving a trail of blue light. Suddenly, the rift-splitting whale appeared, its jaws wide open. The old man was shocked and wondered why it had suddenly discovered him. The old man, with his long white beard, realized the rift-splitting whale couldn't see or just ignored things moving at a steady speed. He figured if he kept moving at the same pace, he could safely pass through the immortal severing formation. He threw his head back and let out a loud, triumphant laugh. He felt like he had finally broken free from the last chain holding him in this forsaken land. As he laughed, a bright light shot out, and the Taehang Ark, a large vessel, broke through the rift between the two realms. It headed straight for the cultivation world, leaving the giant whale's roar behind. The old man felt his surroundings blur, as if he had instantly crossed vast distances between worlds. Even under immense pressure, with blood streaming from his nose and eyes, he didn't care. He looked back at the great immortal severing formation, feeling like his understanding of it had grown immensely. Suddenly, the old man saw something that made his blood run cold. It was a rift-splitting whale, a massive creature with glowing blue eyes and sharp teeth. But it wasn't just one. Hundreds of them appeared, their mouths agape. Then, thousands upon thousands of rift-splitting whales filled the void, a terrifying sight. They began to carve out patches of dark space from the void, creating strange, dark spheres. The immortal forsaken land which he had come from started to drift further and further away, becoming a distant memory. A glowing blue figure shot out of a dark hole in the ground, soaring upwards. The figure flew past towering mountains and clouds, heading towards a bright light in the sky. The figure was an old man with a long white beard and a crown. His face was covered in blood, and he looked like he was about to die. He spoke, barely able to get the words out. "This is the cultivation world." Tears of blood streamed from his eyes as he continued, to be able to see the cultivation world before dying. This story is crazy, but you know what sucks? Waiting a week for the content you are addicted to. Stop waiting. Check out the Dungeon Crawler Carl audiobook for completely free. It is hands down the most entertaining series I have ever listened to, and it has everything we love. Dungeons, systems, a crazy talking cat that kills goblins, and the best part, this series has over 135 hours of content. Use the link in the description to start listening for free. It's not lived in vain. Suddenly, a voice called out, "Huengine." A blue message box appeared stating, "This simulation has ended." The old man was gone, replaced by a young man with green hair, glowing with blue energy. He stood tall and confident. He said, 9 lives, nearly 500 long years, I have finally touched the threshold of cultivation." The young man, now glowing with blue energy, thought about his previous plan. He had intended to speed up the charging process, but after seeing the list of items he could choose from, he paused. A blue screen in front of him asking him to select one item to keep. He was shocked to see the halting steel fragment among the choices. After some thought, he decided to keep the damaged fragment. He felt this was a good chance to test a theory he had. His 10th life began. Since he didn't choose to speed up the charging, he had to wait 20 years for it to finish. 3 years later, he found himself outside Qian Hong's tomb. He hadn't used the immortal mortal miasma to break into the tomb. Instead, he took out the halting steel fragment he had brought from Huengine. As the steel fragment from his previous life appeared, a strange thing happened. It began to slowly disappear, like ice melting under the hot sun. At the same time, the formation inside Qian Hong's tomb, created by the other halting steel fragment, grew much stronger. He realized his thought was correct. Special objects from heaven and earth should be unique. He thought that 2 identical mystical objects shouldn't exist. Yet with Huenjine's ability, he had created an identical one from nothing. The result was that the 2 mystical objects naturally merged, becoming one. After that, he ordered his helpers to use the immortal mortal miasma spray to slowly weaken the tomb's power. When he finally entered Qian Hong's tomb, the halting steel fragment looked almost the same, just a little less damaged. Yi Chuan realized that the halting steel fragment still couldn't absorb energy. It needed to be repaired more completely before it could absorb new energy. He then stored the strengthened fragment in the Taiyin boat, keeping it safe for his future trip to the cultivation world. 20 years passed, and his Huengine was almost finished charging. During this time, he ruthlessly investigated and punished corrupt officials and powerful landlords. He took all the gold, silver, and jewels their families had collected over generations. He knew he would need these valuables when he arrived in the cultivation world, so he prepared them in advance. He also knew that grain was essential, not just money, and he had been asking for too much. The officials all wrote letters against him, but he didn't listen. Instead, he expanded the Taiyin boat to its maximum size, making it float in the air above the imperial palace. When the common people saw this, they all knelt and bowed. The civil and military officials in the court, seeing his immortal methods, changed their minds. They actively and carefully helped him prepare the grain. With the officials' help and the execution of greedy merchants, the Taiyin boat was finally full. With all his preparations done, Yi Chuan no longer had any ties to the mortal world. He steered the Taiyin boat back to the skies above the ruinous abyss. He relaxed, and let the Taiyan boat autopilot at a steady speed. The journey felt like it took only a few hours, but it also felt longer than hundreds of years. He gradually got used to the strange feeling of crossing between two worlds. After a long wait, Yichuan finally passed through the immortal extinction Great Formation and arrived in the cultivation world. However, he was confused by the scenery around him. He wondered why the place he emerged was different this time. He looked at the map, but he couldn't find the location of the sea that Ku Hong had drawn. He knew he had to take it one step at a time. He hoped he could find a populated place before the spirit stones in the Taihang boat ran out. He picked a direction and flew the Taihang boat, searching for cities. The sea was huge, and he flew for 7 days and nights without seeing any sign of people. After more than 10 days, the Taihang boat started to slow down and was about to run out of power. Just then, he saw a faint shadow of a ship in the distance. He looked through his telescope and was speechless. The ship he saw was indeed a ship, but it was on the verge of sinking. It looked like it had been attacked, with a huge hole in its side and 2/3 of it already underwater. Dozens of people, both crew and passengers, were struggling in the water around it. A man in the water, wearing a brown and green robe, shouted to everyone, "Everyone, don't be afraid. I've already sent a signal to the Immortal Master. He will be here to save us soon. Everyone, hold on a little longer." Yichuan, with his black hair and beard, looked surprised, thinking Immortal Master. His heart skipped a beat. He quickly put away his Taiyan boat and jumped into the sea, swimming quietly towards the struggling people. He silently joined the crowd, pretending to be on his last breath and barely surviving. Suddenly, someone cried out, "Immortal Master, save me." Another person echoed the plea. Then a voice from the sky boomed, "Noisy." A male figure appeared in the sky, seemingly using some magic. His clothes and face were blurry, as if behind a veil, making it hard to see him clearly. The moment the mysterious man spoke, the whole area went silent. The old man, who was just yelling, found he couldn't make a sound either. The mysterious man then pointed his finger. The huge, broken ship, which was mostly underwater, rose out of the water. The big hole in the ship's hull fixed itself instantly. With another wave of his hand, the mysterious man sent a group of people flying onto the ship. He then hovered in the air and asked, "Who sent me the signal?" From the crowd of people below, one man, Su Changyu, stepped forward and bowed deeply, introducing himself. The Immortal Master, still glowing with blue energy, spoke to Su Changyu. He made it clear that Su Changyu understood the rules of the fight, and that after they reached the place, the Immortal Master would have nothing to do with it. The Immortal Master then added that he had never seen Su Changyu before and didn't know who he was. Su Changyu, still bowing low, confirmed that he understood. With a sudden burst of energy, the Immortal Master moved, and the ship began to move quickly in a certain direction. The Immortal Master stood at the front of the ship, silent. Everyone else on the ship fell into a strange silence once again. More than half a day passed. As darkness fell, a faint, flickering light became visible in the distance. It was an island that looked very rich, with hundreds of large ships docked in its magnificent harbor. It was a beautiful sight. However, the ship Yichuan was on did not head towards the main harbor. Instead, it went halfway around the island, coming to a less populated area on the back. The ship quietly followed a waterway into a natural cave. After traveling through the narrow cave for a while, the ship finally stopped. Once the ship was still, several burly men dressed in black robes came aboard to meet it. The men in black acted as if they didn't even see the Immortal Master. They simply herded everyone else on the ship, including Yichuan, to disembark. They led everyone to a spacious hall. One of the men in black gave instructions. "You will rest here tonight. There is plenty of food in the hall. You may take it as you wish. Tomorrow, someone will take you to get your identities registered." After giving the instructions, the men in black robes turned and left. A man with a top knot and dark hair wearing a white robe sighed, "AI, what rotten luck to actually run into a monster." Another man with a top knot and dark hair wearing a green robe added, "There were nearly 100 of us when we set out, but now less than half have survived." A third man, also with a top knot and dark hair, wearing a white robe, complained, "AI, I don't know what my father was thinking, insisting on sending me to this great world to cultivate. If you ask me, how can cultivating be as fun as listening to music?" The man in the white robe agreed, saying that back home he was the Prince of Zhenin, enjoying riches and glory. He complained about the current place, wondering what was so good about it. A man with long dark hair, wearing a light blue robe, interjected, asking what was the point of complaining now. He reminded them that their families had paid a huge price to send them all here. This man, named Su Changyu, advised them to cultivate patiently. He explained that if they could become immortal masters, they would not only have a long life, but also a chance to return to their homeland and bring their families out. Meanwhile, another man with a top knot and a mustache, wearing a dark robe, observed the group. He thought that these people were like mortals exiled from a land of immortal extinction. He continued to think that in their original land, the existence of a cultivation world wasn't a secret. He also realized that they had developed a mature smuggling route. Suddenly, a man in a brown and yellow robe approached him, asking if he was an official or a wealthy merchant from one of the provinces, as he looked a bit unfamiliar. This story is crazy, but you know what sucks? Waiting a week for the content you are addicted to. Stop waiting. Check out the Dungeon Crawler Carl audiobook for completely free. It is hands down the most entertaining series I have ever listened to, and it has everything we love. Dungeons, systems, a crazy talking cat that kills goblins, and the best part, this series has over 135 hours of content. Use the link in the description to start listening for free. The old man, with his long dark hair and stern face, watched as the younger man recoiled in fear, a red mark appearing on his cheek. The old man, with his dark hair and beard, looked down at the younger man with a serious expression. The young man, still scared, managed to say, "Gee, goodbye." As the old man walked away, the younger man touched his cheek and thought, "My goodness, that scared me to death. That old man looks like he's been in a high position for years. He's no simple character." The next day at dawn, the young man stood in a room full of people sitting on the floor. He announced, "In a moment, I will take you to get your household registration. Once you have it, you will officially become members of Liulai Island." He then added, "Remember, do not say what should not be said. Otherwise, I cannot guarantee your safety." He continued, "You are all residents of the western Dayu Island. Your island was destroyed by a windstorm, which is why you fled here as refugees. If anyone asks, this is what you'll say." Following the middle-aged man's instructions, everyone changed into ragged clothes. Then, with the middle-aged man leading and 4 or 5 men in black watching, they followed a hidden path out of the cave and reached the surface. Their group of several dozen people was not small. However, most of the island's residents simply looked at them and then went back to their business, as they were used to seeing such sights. After twisting and turning through the city's residential area for a long time, they finally arrived at a manor. Not long after, a young servant at the gate announced their arrival, leading them through a side door on the left and into a large hall. Inside the hall, 2 or 3 other groups totaling over 100 people were already gathered. Soon it was their turn. A man with a long beard and long hair, dressed in purple, asked, "Steward Zhao, are these all registered refugees?" He asked this while looking at the group with a stern expression. Steward Zhao, a man with a stern face and a long beard, confirmed, "That's right. These were all wealthy families from Dayu Island." He explained that their wealth and glory vanished like a bubble after the destruction of an immortal master. Now they had to travel thousands of miles to seek refuge on Liulai Island. The man in purple nodded, his expression serious. "The windstorm raged a few days ago, and even our Liulai Island felt its effects. The western islands suffered even heavier losses. It's said that over 200 islands were destroyed, and countless mortals died at sea." He then added, "Fortunately, the immortal masters were merciful and ordered us to rescue the refugees." Steward Zhao, looking relieved, replied, "It's a good thing that your Jianbao Lu is so dedicated. I will report this truthfully to the island lord. When the immortal master's rewards are given out, you will surely get your share." After this conversation, Steward Zhao began the registration process for everyone. The line moved slowly, but eventually, it was Lai Fan's turn. Steward Zhao looked at Lai Fan, and Lai Fan looked back at him. Steward Zhao asked, "What is your name?" Lai Fan replied, "Lai Fan." Steward Zhao then handed Lai Fan a green talisman and told him to place a drop of his blood on it. Lai Fan pricked his finger, and a drop of blood landed on the talisman. Steward Zhao then told him to keep the spirit talisman safe, explaining that it would be his proof of identity from now on. He added that Lai Fan would need to present the talisman for all matters on the island, big or small, such as receiving work, collecting grain, and undergoing inspections. He emphasized not to lose it. Another steward, standing nearby, wondered why Steward Zhao was being so cordial and explaining so much to Lai Fan. Narrator explained that the household registrations were distributed very efficiently, and their entire group received their Liulai Island registrations. They left that place and did not return to the karst cave. Instead, Sun Jiang led them into the courtyard of a residence. Sun Jiang, looking pleased, asked if they could sign the contract now that they had their household registrations. Yi Chuan pulled out a small piece of paper from his clothes. He showed it to everyone. It had Su Changin written on it. He explained that this was just one of 3 contracts they needed to finish. Once they completed all 3, he would sign the final contract as promised. Sun Jiang looked annoyed. He said dealing with people from the Department of Immortal Master was a hassle. He added that if it wasn't for the Immortal Master, his place, Tianbao Lu, would not be doing such a bad deal. He then announced that all residents of the island could use their household registration spirit talisman to live there. Also, for the first year, they would get free grain every month. Someone from the crowd asked what they should do if they wanted to cultivate. The man with the green robe explained that those who returned from exile had a lot of miasma in their bodies. He said that to cultivate, they first needed to get rid of this miasma. A man with a beard and long dark hair, wearing white robes, spoke up. He said they already knew about the miasma, but didn't know how to remove it. The man in the green robe then explained that there were several ways to remove the miasma. The first was the island's body-purifying spirit pool. He said that soaking in it for a day and a night could completely remove all the miasma. He then explained that the materials needed to open the spirit spirit pool were very expensive, so it could only be opened every 3 years. He added that it was last opened a year ago, meaning they would have to wait 2 more years. He also pointed out that the spirit pool had limited spots, and competition was tough. He doubted how outsiders with no foundation could compete with the island's people. The man in white robes, looking worried, asked about the other methods. The man with the mustache explained the second method. It involved cultivating a profound yellow heart-cleansing incantation and a special diet. He said that this would slowly clear out the miasma over time, taking about 5 or 6 years. Good news was that it didn't require any special payment, as the incantations and elixirs could be bought at the island's pharmacies. The man in white robes was shocked. 5 or 6 years, he said, looking upset. He then asked if there were any other methods. The man with the mustache looked serious. He revealed the third method, which was to become a test subject. The man in the green robe confirmed that the people in front of him were indeed test subjects. He explained that some immortal masters were interested in the miasma inside a mortal's body. Every year, they chose volunteers from the mortals on the island to be test subjects. The immortal masters would then extract the miasma from the test subjects for research. It only took a few months to completely drain the miasma from a test subject's body. However, the process was excruciatingly painful. It was a state of being unable to live and unable to die. Most people couldn't endure it and went mad from the torture before the miasma was fully extracted. The young man in white asked if there were any other methods. The man in green explained that direct mortal descendants of immortal masters could rely on heavenly materials and earthly treasures to reconstruct their bodies. This would not only remove the miasma, but also improve their cultivation. However, such methods were beyond their imagination, and even the island Lord of Leoli didn't receive such treatment. The man in green continued, saying he knew they had all returned from exile after facing many hardships. He knew they all wanted to follow the Tao, the path to immortality. He asked, who among us wasn't like that in the beginning? He explained that the path to immortality was very hard. Even if they could remove all the miasma from their bodies, very few could feel the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and pull it into themselves. He questioned why they would seek such trouble when there was nothing wrong with just being immortal. He suggested that instead of working hard to become immortal, it was better to enjoy life, do what they loved, and live in the moment. One of the men with long blue hair listened silently, his expression unreadable. After the man in green, Sun Jiang, left, the crowd broke up. The man with long blue hair looked around and found the place where he could get free housing. He showed his spirit talisman and was taken to the residential area in the northern part of Leoli Island. This area was full of houses packed closely together. He noticed that most of the houses were old, but they were protected by walls and didn't look too bad. After handing him a key, the guide left. The man with long blue hair looked at the key and the house, confirming, row 6, 7th house. This is it. The man with long blue hair entered the house. He looked around the simple room, which only had a bed, a few tables, and chairs. He thought, never mind. He lay down on the bed, feeling relieved. He thought, at least I've settled down without much trouble. It's all thanks to those people from the departed realm. He then thought about the group he was with. Unfortunately, aside from Su Changyu, this group seems to be entirely mediocre, with no heart for the Tao, incapable of achieving anything great. He then shifted his focus to his main goal. He realized his primary goal was to remove the miasma from his body. He knew that even though the spots for entering the body-purifying spirit pool were precious, the treasures he had plundered from within the Taeyuan Arc were countless. So forcing his way into a spot shouldn't be too difficult. However, he also considered the downside. It would be too conspicuous. He thought, as they say, don't flash your wealth. I have no foundation here yet. Suddenly revealing too much wealth will surely attract prying eyes. I need to plan this carefully. Suddenly, he heard a knock on the door. He sat up, startled, and asked, who's there? A voice from outside replied, it's me. The man from outside, who had an intense gaze and a neatly tied top knot, had a glowing blue sword in his hand. He opened the door, and the man inside, Yi Chuan, looked at him with surprise. The man with the sword asked, you're not one of us from the departed realm, are you? Yi Chuan, still on the floor, looked up and asked, what? The man with the sword pressed on, who are you, and what is your purpose in sneaking onto Leoli Island? Yi Chuan, now standing, looked serious and asked, how did you know I'm not from the departed realm? The man explained, when we fell into the water, I vaguely saw you suddenly emerge from underwater. At first, I thought it was an illusion. The man, still pointing at Yi Chuan, continued, later, after thinking it over carefully, I realized you weren't in our group when we left the departed realm. Yi Chuan chuckled, a sly grin on his face. It seems you're quite astute and sharp-minded, he said. Of course. Besides me, not a single one of those idiots noticed a stranger had snuck in. The man's eyes narrowed. Are you sure no one else besides you noticed? He asked, a hint of suspicion in his voice. Yi Chuan, still smiling, replied, of course not. How could those fools compare to his young master? Before Yi Chuan could finish his sentence, the man moved with lightning speed. A blade, glinting wickedly, plunged into Yi Chuan's chest, a spray of blood erupting from the wound. Yi Chuan fell to the ground, blood pooling around him. The man, now holding a glowing blue weapon, looked down at him with contempt. Truly clueless, he muttered. He then explained, Relying on a bit of cleverness, you discovered I might have snuck in under a false identity and you couldn't wait to come and threaten me. The man on the ground with bloodied hands spoke again. He pointed out that the people from the departed realm also got their household registrations by pretending to be refugees. Now that they had Leoli Island household registrations, they acted like true natives. He thought about the immortal master, whose face was unclear, and the others like Sun Jiang and Tianbao Lu. They all acted very carefully, afraid of being found out. He realized that their identity as mortals from the land of exile was a secret they had to keep. He knew that even if they found out the fatty came to see him before he disappeared, it wouldn't matter, since no body could be found, and as long as he insisted he never saw him, they couldn't do anything to him. As expected, a few days passed. Only Su Changyu came to ask a single question, and then the fatty's disappearance didn't draw any more attention. During these days, he learned about different things on the island and planned how to use the treasures from the Taiyin Arc. He now had a good understanding of Leoli Island and his current location. He learned that the sea region was called the Kanjian Sea, a vast area with thousands of islands. Leoli Island was in the south-central part of the Kanjian Sea and was medium-sized. It was named Leoli Island because the waters around it had a lot of delicious, fleshy fish called Leoli fish. The narrator explained that Leoli fish were popular, not just for their taste, but also because they sometimes formed special pearls inside their bodies. These Leoli pearls were used in powerful elixirs by immortal masters. Because of this, the immortal master in charge of Leoli Island had to collect a certain number of these pearls every year. Going out to sea to catch these fish was a regular job. However, fishermen only got to keep 30% of their catch, while the Leoli manor took 70%. Catching Leoli fish was tricky and unpredictable, often requiring a special spirit lure from the island. This lure was only given out by the Leoli manor and had to be returned. Private fishing was strictly forbidden, with severe penalties, meaning fishing for Leoli fish could only be done with permission from the manor. The narrator then shifted to a recent event. A few days ago, a fleet went out to sea. They didn't just return with a huge haul of Leoli fish, they also found a shipwreck. Divers were shown exploring the sunken vessel, which was filled with gold, silver, and jewels. This was a huge stroke of luck for the island. When salvaging items from a shipwreck, the island's rules stated that 30% of the salvaged treasure, along with the Leoli fish, could be kept by the finders, but the remaining 70% had to be given to the authorities. When the fleet came back to port, the whole island was buzzing with excitement. Even Steward Kyan, the island's financial supervisor, came to inspect the treasures personally. Seeing this, many people on the island started secretly trying to secure a spot on the next sea voyage. Yichuan realized that if he could go out to sea alone, he could secretly take the treasures from the shipwreck. The main problem, he thought, was getting permission to go out to sea by himself. He had made some casual inquiries and learned that too many people wanted to join the fleet, making it difficult to get a spot. He knew the island lord of Leoli Island had 3 main assistants: Steward Zhao, who handled people, Steward Kyan, who managed money, and Steward Zhu, who was in charge of safety. Most of the sea voyage spots were controlled by Steward Kyan. Steward Zhao and Steward Zhu always wanted to get involved, but Steward Kyan kept a tight grip, only allowing them 1 or 2 fleets to manage. The man with the dark hair and mustache, who was previously speaking, thought about Steward Zhao. He remembered that on the day of registration, Steward Zhao had treated him differently from everyone else. He wasn't sure why, but he decided it was worth finding out. He thought, perhaps I should go and see this Steward Zhao. The man with the long dark hair and beard, wearing a black robe, explained that Steward Zhao was too important to see directly, so he decided to go through Sun Jiang of the Heavenly Treasure Tower. However, when he arrived at the Heavenly Treasure Tower, he was met with a cold shoulder. A hooded figure blocked his way, asking, "What kind of status does Elder Sun have? Is he someone you can see just because you want to? Leave immediately." The man in the black robe thought about it. The Heavenly Treasure Tower was open for business, so why were people being turned away without even being seen? He also wondered why the men in black, who usually asked for instructions, were ignoring him, even though they knew who he was. He wondered if someone had spread rumors in the departed realm, making Sun Jiang hostile and causing everyone to ignore him. After doing some digging, he found out what happened. It turned out that to get rid of the miasma in his body, Su Changyu had signed a contract to become a test subject. This meant the 3 contracts were complete, and the contract document had disappeared. There were no longer any ties between the departed realm and Tianbao Lu. The man in the black robe realized, no wonder they suddenly turned hostile and deliberately avoided us. I just didn't expect Su Changyu to be so decisive. The man in the black robe thought to himself, I told him not to rush, but he never listens. He knew that if it wasn't for his sister's illness, Su Changyu wouldn't be so desperate. He looked at the man in the white robe and thought about how Su Changyu had avoided him. He decided he wouldn't give up so easily. He thought about how Su Changyu couldn't help but comfort him that day. This person wasn't evil. He probably kept his distance because he didn't want to get involved with people from the immortal Forsaken Land. The man in the black robe preferred dealing with people whose backgrounds he knew a little about. So he returned to the Heavenly Treasure Tower. As he approached, a man in a black hood, one of the guards, shouted, "You kid, why are you back again? Are you looking for death?" Yichuan, not backing down, told the guard that he was there to do business with the Heavenly Treasure Tower. He questioned if this was how they treated guests, demanding to be heard. The guard was taken aback, unable to respond as other people in the area looked on, surprised by Yi Chuan's boldness. After the guard went to get instructions, he came back and led Yi Chuan inside. Yi Chuan was then seated in a guest room where a maid served him a cup of tea. Yi Chuan took a sip of the tea and declared it good. Another man, dressed in a green robe, joined him and began to talk about a rare plant called Dayu Pale Dragon. He explained that it usually grows in volcanic craters around Dayu Island, with only about 50 plants existing. Now, with Dayu Island destroyed, it had become even rarer. Yi Chuan, still holding his tea, replied that he was basking in the elder's wisdom. The elder, with a stern look, told Yi Chuan that their dealings in Dali were finished. He asked why Yi Chuan had sought him out again. Yi Chuan replied that the elder had misunderstood. He was indeed there to discuss a business deal. The elder looked surprised, a slight smirk on his face. "Business? You?" he asked, a hint of disbelief in his voice. Yi Chuan's eyes narrowed slightly, a silent challenge in his gaze. The elder met his stare, a moment of quiet tension passing between them. The elder then asked, "What business?" Man with the headband explained that every time the fleet went to sea, they could salvage treasures and catch rare fish and other marine specialties. He said these items alone were enough to make a fortune. He added that it would be impossible for their heavenly treasure tower not to be interested in such a venture. The elder, looking stern, replied that the fleet quotas were tightly controlled by Steward Kyan. He pointed out that even Steward Zhao, a high-ranking official, could only get 1 or 2 spots. He then questioned the man, calling him a newcomer and asking what ability he had to scheme for such a thing. The man with long dark hair and a small beard, looking confident, said that if they let him see Steward Zhao, he had his own way to persuade him. The elder, now seated at a table with the man, agreed to let him see Steward Zhao, saying it wasn't a difficult thing to arrange. A beautiful woman with long dark hair, wearing a gold dress and a veil, then spoke up. She instructed them that if the man failed, they should chop him up and throw him into the sea to feed the fish. The elder and the veiled woman then greeted the shopkeeper, who was seated at the table. The shopkeeper, a man with a long beard, thanked the elder in advance. The veiled woman with long dark hair looked at the shopkeeper and said, "You seem to have some confidence. It doesn't look like you're talking big." The shopkeeper then replied, "This humble one always keeps his promises. My word is my bond." The veiled woman thought to herself, HMPH tilde, if it really succeeds, my heavenly treasure tower will want to extract a corresponding benefit. The shopkeeper then explained the island's rules. According to the island's rules, 3/10 of the harvest from each voyage can be kept for oneself. He continued, "I don't want a single cent of those 3/10. Half goes to Steward Zhao, and half goes to your heavenly treasure tower." The veiled woman looked confused, wondering, "That's strange. In that case, going to such great lengths, what is it that you want?" The shopkeeper then revealed his true desire. "I only want the quota to enter the body-purifying spirit pool once every 3 years. The woman in the gold dress, who had been quietly standing, looked surprised by the shopkeeper's request. The shopkeeper, however, seemed unfazed. Suddenly, the woman burst into laughter, her shoulders shaking with mirth. "Please, uncle," she said, trying to compose herself, "you're already at this age and you still want to cultivate immortality." The shopkeeper, sitting across the table, also started to chuckle, finding her reaction amusing. He looked at her, a serious expression on his face. "Only seeking eternal life. I will not regret it even if I die." The woman in the mask stared at him, her expression unreadable. After a moment of silence, she finally spoke. "Good, I agree to this matter." The woman in the gold dress told Yi Chuan that once a date was set, she would send someone to tell him. Yi Chuan confirmed the agreement. As he walked away, Yi Chuan told her where he lived, giving her the address for House No. 7 6th longitudinal, outside the city. After Yi Chuan left, the woman in the gold dress turned to the shopkeeper. She asked him about a spot in the body-purifying spirit pool. She knew the competition for spots was tough every year, but she believed her heavenly treasure tower had enough strength to compete. She thought that if Yi Chuan could really get a seafaring fleet, the profits from it in just 5 years would be enough to pay for a spot. She felt this was a sure win with no loss. But then she hesitated. The shopkeeper asked her what was wrong. She looked worried and confessed that Yi Chuan's eyes had seemed quite scary. Yi Chuan, back in his room, thought about what the doctor had said. He decided to go to a pharmacy and buy some special herbs for his cultivation. He thought that if he cultivated hard, he might not need to wait 2 years for the body-purifying spirit pool to open. He could cleanse his body himself. For the next few days, Yi Chuan stayed home and cultivated. He was also waiting to meet Steward Zhao again. But then he got some shocking news. Su Changyu had died. When Su Changyu's body was sent back, it was a horrifying sight. It was just a twisted mess of flesh and blood, barely recognizable as human. It was so gruesome that the flesh and blood still twitched, making everyone who saw it feel sick. The people who came with Su Changyu were also from the departed realm, and were too poor to even buy a grave plot. They had planned to bury him at sea, but Yi Chuan couldn't stand to watch, so he paid for a proper burial. Zio Heng, the Prince of Zhenin from the departed realm, cried sadly. Yi Chuan felt a pang of sadness too. He knew Su Changyu was a decent and determined person, not a genius, but certainly not a nobody. Yi Chuan had thought Su Changyu was the most likely among them to make a name for himself. Yi Chuan stood in the rain, reflecting on Su Changyu's death. He thought about how Su Changyu, a good person, couldn't even survive the first step of cultivation, purging miasma. He died so quietly. Yi Chuan realized that the path to immortality was truly difficult. He continued to cultivate the profound yellow heart-cleansing incantation. The more he practiced, the deeper his understanding became. He also realized that he wasn't some peerless genius either. For almost a month, Yi Chuan stayed hidden, cultivating the incantation daily. Usually, even people with average talent would see big changes after half a month, like improved spirits and faster thinking. But a month passed, and Yi Chuan felt no changes at all. He didn't worry, though. He just treated it as a daily task. Another half-month went by, and finally, people from the Heavenly Treasure Tower arrived. Following their messenger, Yi Chuan went to a courtyard owned by the Heavenly Treasure Tower. There, he met Steward Zhao. Steward Zhao, long time no see, Yi Chuan greeted him. Steward Zhao, a man with a long white beard, looked at Yi Chuan. I heard from the people at Heavenly Treasure Tower that you want a spot on a seafaring fleet. Your appetite is quite big. What backing do you have? He asked. Yi Chuan, with his long dark hair and mustache, looked at Steward Zhao. He told him that a fleet going out to sea only seeks profit. He then asked Steward Zhao how the profit from catching fish compared to retrieving treasures from sunken ships on the ocean floor. Steward Zhao, with his long white beard and purple robe, replied that salvaging treasure was worth several regular fishing trips. However, he wondered how one could encounter such a good thing every time. He continued, saying he had been on the island for over a dozen years, and in his memory there had only been a few times with major harvests. Yi Chuan, standing with his hands clasped, confidently stated that if he were to command a fleet, he could guarantee that every time they went out to sea, they would bring back a certain amount of treasure. Steward Zhao's eyes widened in surprise. He realized that Yi Chuan was not lying. Yi Chuan, noticing Steward Zhao's reaction, asked how he figured that out, since he indeed did not talk big. Steward Zhao explained that he was born with unique eyes that could recognize talent and distinguish truth from falsehood. He said that when Yi Chuan spoke, he saw a soft white light coming from his body, which proved his words were true and that he had no ill intentions. Yi Chuan was surprised. He hadn't known such a unique ability existed. He then asked Steward Zhao if he had seen something special on the day of his registration, as his attitude seemed different from others. Steward Zhao replied that he only saw Yi Chuan was very wealthy and had blood on his hands, which meant he was not an ordinary person. That's why he was polite, hoping to gain good karma. Yi Chuan then asked if Steward Zhao realized that Sun Jiang from Heavenly Treasure Tower was not telling the truth when he registered. Steward Zhao casually responded that it didn't matter if it was true. With an immortal master on the island, they weren't afraid of trouble. He advised Yi Chuan to mind his own business, and nothing would happen to him. Steward Zhao added that gathering refugees was also the immortal master's order, so he couldn't make things difficult for Sun Jiang. Yi Chuan understood. Since Steward Zhao could tell he wasn't lying, he asked if he would consider giving him a seafaring spot. Steward Zhao sat down, explaining that Yi Chuan was a newcomer with no foundation. If he rashly gave him the fleet, it would cause much dissatisfaction. Steward Zhao offered a solution. How about this, next time the fleet goes out, you go with them. If you can salvage treasure every time you go out, then in just a few trips, the crew will surely be convinced by you. At that time, you can take over the fleet justifiably. Yi Chuan, with a slight smile, thought that Steward Zhao's thinking was thorough. The masked woman who was listening in was shocked. She couldn't believe that Yi Chuan had convinced Steward Zhao so easily. She turned to the man next to her, asking, could it be that that uncle wasn't talking big, and he really has the confidence to secure this fleet? The man, also looking thoughtful, wondered what kind of backing Yi Chuan actually had. The masked woman then ordered, send him the title deed for that vacant courtyard on East Street in the city. The shopkeeper was shocked. He looked at the masked woman, confused. He asked, He then argued, shopkeeper, we spent a fortune to get that courtyard. We were going to use it to bribe Steward Kyan. How can we just give it to him? Even if we do give it to him, we should wait until he helps us secure the fleet first. The masked woman with her arms crossed looked at him sternly. She replied, just go if I tell you to. If we really wait until then, a small courtyard won't be enough to befriend him. Sun Jiang sent someone to give him the property deed, and Yi Chuan accepted it. He moved into the courtyard house on East Street that very day. Compared to the slums, this new place was much better. He politely turned down the maids sent by the Heavenly Treasure Tower. He settled in, waiting for the next fleet to set sail. He thought it wouldn't take long, but an unexpected event pushed back the departure date indefinitely. Suddenly, a strong windstorm arrived, and people panicked, shouting, go home quickly. The windstorm is coming. Children cried out for their mothers as the windstorm hit. Yi Chuan, startled by the sudden storm, quickly stood up. He ran out into the heavy rain, looking up at the sky. He saw a massive, swirling vortex of wind and energy forming above him. The vortex grew, engulfing the entire area in a powerful, swirling current of water and wind. A voice boomed across the island, announcing, the Island Protection Grand Formation has been activated. There is no need to panic. Hide inside your homes. Do not go out. Below, the islanders looked up at the sky, which was now filled with glowing blue circles, a sign of the activated formation. Many of the islanders knelt, pressing their hands together in prayer. Immortal Master is merciful, they cried out, relieved by the protection. Inside a building, a man with long dark hair and a beard stood looking out. He thought about the blue light of the island's protection, which seemed ancient and mysterious. He also noticed the strange howling sound like ghosts, and how the raindrops were stopped by the light barrier. He looked up, a worried expression on his face. He thought about how violent the storm was outside, yet it was calm inside. He wondered if this was the power of immortals. The man looked up, his face filled with terror. He thought about the heavenly thunder and the island protection formation. He knew it had great power. Suddenly, he realized the thunder was coming again. He looked even more scared. The sky was full of purple lightning, crashing down on the island. The lightning struck the island protection formation, causing a massive explosion of energy. The man looked up, his eyes wide with fear. He wondered if this was the end for him. Luckily, the island's protection held up. The great waves of energy slowly calmed down, but it was still a powerful force. The windstorm came and went, making it hard to tell day from night. It felt like 2 or 3 days passed before it finally stopped. He learned from the islanders that this windstorm was actually quite small. They said a windstorm 15 years ago was much more powerful. During that older, stronger storm, the island's protection barely held up and had to shrink its protective area. After it passed, Leolai Island was only 1/3 of its original size. For 10 years after that, Leolai Island slowly recovered by taking in refugees. Looking at the sky, he thought about how terrifying the might of heaven and earth could be. A few days after the recent windstorm, all residents got instructions. They had to check their homes to see if the island's protection had any damage. The Leolai Manor would give out spirit talismans. People just needed to hang one in their home for a few days and nights, and if a red light appeared, it meant there was damage. The island's protection was very important, so everyone had to check for problems. Under the Immortal Master's orders, and for everyone's safety, maintaining the island's protection was the top priority. The island's self-inspection process was long and complicated. It involved 360 flashes of a spirit talisman for one small cycle, and 360 small cycles for one large cycle. As long as no red light appeared during a large cycle, it meant the island was safe. The Immortal Master, Lai Fan, looked at the glowing blue talisman in his hand. He thought about how massive and intricate the island's protection formation was, finding it hard to imagine how it was built. 5 days later, the good news came out. The island's protection was completely fine. Everyone on the island breathed a sigh of relief. With the Immortal Master back, the residents felt at ease, and life on Leolai Island slowly returned to normal. In the following months, many refugees from other islands arrived at Leolai Island seeking safety. Most people on those other islands had died in the recent windstorm. The southern Kanjian Sea was vast, with countless large and small islands. Only islands with special resources had an Immortal Master to protect them. During these months, Lai Fan didn't just sit around. He kept practicing his profound yellow heart-cleansing incantation every day, and it paid off. He saw his stats. His physiological age was 41/88, and his psychological age was 504/1119. He noticed that the upper limits of both his physiological and psychological age had increased, which made him feel more energetic. Another month passed, and Lai Fan finally received news from Steward Zhao. Steward Zhao told him that the windstorm in the Kanjian Sea had completely disappeared, and the fleet was ready to depart soon. 3 days later, Lai Fan arrived at the Leolai Island pier. He looked at the massive ship, realizing this was the Kangyuan that Steward Zhao had told him about. On the ship, a group of sailors chatted amongst themselves. One sailor with a headband complained, "I don't know what kind of madness has seized the island lord to organize some sort of assessment. The fleet with the smallest harvest this voyage will be deemed unqualified and will have their future sailing qualifications cancelled. How can this be good?" Another sailor, pointing his finger, sighed, "Don't mention it. Isn't it all caused by the windstorm? I heard people saying in private that the island protection grand formation of Coral Island to the south shattered, and the entire island was razed to the ground. And those supplies that Coral Island needed to submit have fallen onto our Leolai Island's head." A third sailor, looking worried, exclaimed, "What kind of situation is this? How will we live in the future?" Another sailor tried to reassure him. "It's said that it's only temporary, we just need to make up for what was owed before." Suddenly, a large, muscular man with long hair, named Zhang Heabo, stepped forward, towering over the other sailors. He looked at them with an angry expression and yelled, "Look at your cowardly appearance. Why don't you look on the bright side?" Zhang Heabo continued, "Doesn't the first place also have a reward? The share of the harvest is increased from 30% to 50%. One of the crew members, a man with a worried expression, spoke up, "Boss, stop dreaming. First place, you know our fishing skills. We can barely complete our quota as it is." Another crew member added, "Yeah, I think this will be our last time going out to sea." A third crew member suggested, "Why don't we just go and become free pirates? How thrilling would that be?" The man with the long hair and beard, who seemed to be the leader, smiled confidently. "Don't worry," he said, "there's a capable person joining our ship this time. I guarantee everyone will return fully loaded." The crew members looked at the new person with suspicion. One of them, a burly man with long dark hair, asked, "Just him? So pale and clean, has he ever been to sea?" The burly man, who seemed to be their leader, shouted at his crew, "You blind fools! You don't recognize a noble person. This is a great talent specially invited by Steward Zhao, and he will take over our ship soon. You all be more polite." The crew members were not happy. One of them yelled, "Boss, you've been the captain of this Kangyuan for almost 10 years. How can you just give it up like that?" Another one chimed in, exactly. A third one added, my life was saved by you, boss. If they want to drive you away, I, Liu-san, will be the first to disagree. The burly man grunted in frustration as the crew continued to protest. One of them suggested, why don't we just throw him into the sea to feed the fish once we set sail? It's perfectly normal for someone to die at sea anyway. The burly man tried to calm everyone down, raising his hand. Calm down, everyone, calm down, he explained. Although I know everyone thinks highly of me, Zhang Heabo, the Kangyuan is Steward Zhao's property after all, and we are merely selling our lives for him. He continued, now that Steward Zhao says he wants to change personnel, I have no choice either. The man with the long mustache, Steward Zhao, looked at the crowd and called their bluff. He asked if they didn't trust him, implying that his judgment was always right. He then promised that he would find treasure every time they set sail, and declared that he would not let them down. The crew members looked at each other, surprised. One of them wondered if the new captain, Yi Chuan, actually had skills. Another replied that it was probably true, given Steward Zhao's excellent track record. The angry man, still fuming, muttered to himself, what? Yinding treasure every time we set sail? I don't believe it. He felt that Yi Chuan had used his connections to get the captain's position and accused him of making a fool out of him. He then turned around and shouted, anyway, the big words have been spoken and I'll wait to see how you end this. He then commanded the crew, set sail. Head out to sea. The ship, named Kangyuan, moved out of the port and headed towards the vast sea. It didn't rely on wind or human power, but on microspell formations powered by spirit stones. The ship also had a spirit lure that would guide them when traces of fish schools were found nearby. However, the sea was vast, and the spirit lure's range was limited. This meant experienced crew members were still needed to find fish schools, but even their experience was useless against strong winds or migrating fish schools. In such cases, they had to rely on luck. The Kangyuan's luck was not good at all. For more than half a month, they only managed to catch some regular fish and a few marine minerals. There were no big catches. The crew members all looked sad. Even Zhang Zhang, the captain, started to feel worried. He knew there was a punishment for coming in last place. Zhang Zhang said, the rule is to return to the island within a month. We've only caught this small amount. This might be our smallest harvest ever. He continued, we can only hope for things to change in the next few days. May the immortal master protect us. Just then, Yi Chuan, wearing a dark robe, walked out. Zhang Zhang looked at him and said, you're finally willing to come out of the cabin. He added, if you didn't still take food every day, I would have thought you died in there. Yi Chuan looked at him and declared, I want a small boat. I saw treasure. The man with the long hair and dark clothes, who had been listening to Yi Chuan, looked shocked. He asked, you aren't joking, right? Yi Chuan, still looking serious, replied, quickly prepare a small boat for me. I saw jewels shining with brilliance under the deep sea, waiting for me to salvage it. He continued, his eyes intense, the opportunity is fleeting. The light of the treasures is becoming dim. I am about to lose its bearing. The man quickly turned to the others and shouted, quick, prepare the boat. The others, surprised but obedient, responded, yes. Yi Chuan was soon in a small boat, holding an oar. He told the men on the bigger ship, you are not allowed to follow. Wait for my signal. One of the men asked, why? Yi Chuan looked back, his expression stern. You are too noisy, it's easy to interrupt my line of sight. The other men on the boat were clearly annoyed by Yi Chuan's rude words. They grumbled and looked at each other with angry expressions. One of the men, still looking out at the vast sea, asked the boss, is it possible he ran away by himself? The boss, a large man with long hair, scoffed, what silly talk. The sea is vast, and he didn't bring any dry rations alone. Where could he run to? 2 hours later, a red signal light shot up from the water. The boss immediately recognized it. It's the signal. Quick, drive the ship over, he shouted excitedly. They quickly steered the large ship towards the signal. As they got closer, they saw Yi Chuan standing on a small boat, waving at them. The treasure is right here, he yelled. The boss, now filled with excitement, ordered his crew into the water. Cast the net. The crew responded with a resounding yes. Soon they pulled up many treasure chests, all overflowing with shining gold. The boss stared at the glittering riches, his eyes wide with disbelief and joy. The boss, still in awe, couldn't believe his eyes. A whole 16 chests of gold and silver treasures. He mumbled, sweat dripping down his face. One of his men, equally excited, nudged him. Boss, Mr. Lai didn't brag. He really allowed everyone to return fully loaded. The boss looked out at the sea, a mix of shock and wonder on his face. It's actually true. The guy can actually really find treasure sunken at the bottom of the sea. This kind of ability, he realized that Lai was no ordinary person. He was an extraordinary person, just like Steward Zhao. The boss gritted his teeth, angry at himself. Zhang Heabo, oh Zhang Heabo, you are such a naive person to miss such a good person. You didn't grasp it, but you actually ridiculed Steward Lai and even wanted to smack your tiny little face. He knew he messed up badly. No, I must hurry and apologize. Right now, immediately, he decided, looking determined. As soon as the ship docked, Zhang Heabo, a muscular man with long dark hair, immediately bowed deeply to apologize to the main character. After dismissing him politely, the main character went to his room to rest. With the treasures secured, the Kang Yuan ship stopped fishing and turned around, heading back to Liulai Island. The crew knew the harvest was so good that they wouldn't truly relax until they were safely back on the island. Zhang Heabo, now back on the ship, gave orders to a crew member named Liu-san. Don't dock yet. Liu-san, slip into the water quietly and go notify Steward Zhao. Ask him to personally send people to do the inventory. Liu-san quickly agreed. Zhang Heabo then addressed his crew, explaining that if anything unexpected happened, their fleet would have the largest harvest. He reminded them that according to the rules, they would keep 50%. He added that he didn't trust outsiders to handle the inventory, feeling it was safer if their own people did it. The crew cheered, agreeing with their boss, saying that even losing a little bit would distress them greatly. After some waiting, the Kangyuan finally docked. However, the people sent for the inventory were blocked by Zhang Heabo and his crew members. A man with a top knot and a green robe, who seemed to be in charge, stepped forward. He looked at Zhang Heabo with a sneer. Zhang Heabo, what is the meaning of this? You won't let us board to take inventory. He then looked at the ship's draft and concluded, judging by your ship's draft, I'm afraid you returned empty-handed this time. It seems your time as captain has come to an end. The man with the long black hair and beard, wearing a dark robe, seemed to be holding back his companion, who was clearly upset. What did you say? The companion yelled, but the robed man calmly replied, there is no need to argue with him. The robed man thought about Zhang Heabo's position as captain, realizing that it was only his background and experience that limited him. Soon, Steward Zhao, a man with a long white beard and a purple robe, arrived with his men, ready to take inventory. As 16 chests of jewelry were carried off the ship, the entire dock erupted in excitement. The news of the Kangyuan's massive treasure haul quickly spread across Liulai Island. At the Heavenly Treasure Tower, a man rushed in, calling out to the shopkeeper, a woman with dark hair and a veiled face. She calmly asked, what is it? So flustered. The man, out of breath, stammered, treasure. Over 10 chests. Kangyuan. The masked woman, still holding the jar, smiled. She thought it was only 10 chests of treasure, nothing to fuss about. She also knew that if anyone on the island wanted to sell these treasures, they would have to use her Heavenly Treasure Tower's channels. Suddenly, her eyes widened in shock. Wait, did you say the Kangyuan? She exclaimed. Is that the ship where Uncle Lai Fan is staying? A man in a long robe with a stern expression appeared, his hands raised in a dramatic gesture. He confirmed, that's right. No wonder that guy could persuade Steward Zhao. He was absolutely certain he would find treasure as soon as he went out to sea. This ability is just like our Heavenly Treasure Tower's grand shopkeeper. The masked woman, now facing away, instructed someone, go arrange it immediately. See when we can invite him for a meal. Also, send someone to clean up the tower and then send the title deed over to him. A person kneeling on the floor replied, yes. The masked woman looked thoughtful, holding the jar again. Could he be a spirit channeling treasure physique? She wondered. The man in the robe explained, the legendary spirit channeling treasure physique. As long as there are treasures existing within a certain range of oneself, one will sense them. The masked woman looked up, a faint image of another woman with long hair appearing behind her. She thought, the grand shopkeeper of Heavenly Treasure Tower, Yin Yueding, my older sister, possesses this special constitution. The masked woman's thoughts continued, explaining that her older sister, Yin Yueding, had built the Heavenly Treasure Tower using her special ability. This tower became a massive trading hub, growing from nothing over the past 12 years. She then thought about how another person with the same spirit-channeling treasure physique had now appeared. The scene shifted to Steward Zhao's manor, where two men sat across from each other at a table. The man with long, dark hair and a beard spoke, saying, you truly are extraordinary, fishing up 16 chests of treasure on your first time out to sea. You really gave me a huge surprise. The other man, also with long dark hair and a beard, replied, the harvest this time was indeed substantial, but I'm afraid it will be hard to get this much in the future. The first man, Steward Zhao, agreed, that stands to reason. How could one have such luck every time? However, just relying on the harvest this time is enough for me to operate a separate fleet for you. The other man, grateful, said, in that case, many thanks, Steward Zhao. Steward Zhao then asked, I heard that you racked your brains just to set a seal in the body-purifying spirit pool. Steward Zhao, a man with a long white beard, looked at the other man and said, at your age, to still have a heart that yearns for the Tao, I am inferior to you. The man then explained that over 10 years ago, he saved an immortal master by luck. The immortal master asked if he wanted to cultivate, but he felt he was too old. He believed that the older one gets, the harder it is to cultivate, and the more painful it becomes to remove the miasma in the body. He continued, now, as I get older, I vaguely feel regret. There is no medicine for regret in this world. Among the hundreds of thousands of mortals on Liulai Island, those like you are truly the minority. The man, still sitting on the ground, replied, you flatter me. I wonder regarding the matter of the quota for the body-purifying spirit pool, Steward Zhao. Steward Zhao explained that he couldn't help with the quota. He said the opening of the body-purifying spirit pool requires the island's immortal master to preside over it. He added that the immortal master announces the required materials 1 year before the opening. Each family collects the materials and hands them over, and the quota is based on contribution points. However, Steward Zhao reassured him, you don't need to worry. Heavenly Treasure Tower has opened branches on every island in the Kanjian Sea. If we talk about the ability to collect materials, there aren't many on Liulai Island who can compare to them. The man thought, Heavenly Treasure Tower, as he imagined a beautiful woman. As Yichuan returned to his small courtyard, Steward Sun Zhang from Steward Zhao's manor was waiting at his door. He had been there a long time. Sun Zhang asked, "Your shopkeeper is looking for me for something." Yichuan, who wanted to meet her, readily agreed. He did not accept the title deed to Tingyu Tower that Sun Zhang brought. Yichuan was then led into a grand building where a beautiful woman waited for him. The woman introduced herself, saying, "Let me formally introduce myself. I am Lialai, the shopkeeper of Heavenly Treasure Tower, Yin Yuzhen." Yichuan simply replied, "Lai Fan." Yin Yuzhen giggled, "HMPH uncle, you really are concise." She continued, "Immortal, there is really nothing worth saying. Is a spirit channeling treasure physique not worth mentioning in uncle's eyes either?" The man with the mustache, still playing dumb, replied, "Oh, what spirit channeling treasure physique? I don't know." The girl, clearly annoyed, asked, "Then how did you find the location of the treasure in the vast sea?" The man simply answered, "Just a feeling in my heart." The girl's face showed her frustration and she pressed him, "You still say you aren't a spirit channeling treasure physique?" Seeing that he genuinely seemed clueless, she sighed and told him about the spirit channeling treasure physique out of helplessness. He then asked, "So you're saying your sister is also a spirit channeling treasure physique? How old is she? What does she look like? Where was she 20 years ago? Where is she now?" Woman in the yellow dress, still on the floor, looked up at him with wide eyes and asked if he was their long-lost father. Then she quickly changed her mind, realizing he didn't look like them. She admitted she was just curious. He understood her curiosity and told her it was fine. The woman explained that she and her brother were from Yellen Island. Their parents died in a disaster when they were young, leaving them to rely on each other. She remembered begging for food every day, never knowing where their next meal would come from. But then, her sister started finding valuable items in different places. Their lives got better, and her sister even built the Heavenly Treasure Tower all by herself. She sadly mentioned that she hadn't seen her sister in years. He asked her where her sister went. She explained that 3 years ago, her sister was chosen by an immortal master and taken away. At first, her sister would send people to tell them she was safe. But then the news stopped. Yichuan thought that maybe the immortal master took her to teach her how to become immortal. The girl sadly said she wished that were true. She explained that in the letters her sister sent, she used a secret code that only the two of them understood. The code told her that her sister was in a very dangerous situation. Her sister also told her not to look for her. Yichuan wondered if her sister's special body type caused trouble. The girl explained that her sister was just a normal person, and anything valuable to a normal person was like trash to an immortal master. She said that other immortal masters had noticed her sister's special body before, but they never took it seriously. She didn't know why this last immortal master took her sister away. The woman, still looking upset, explained that without her sister's special ability, her family's business, the Heavenly Treasure Tower, started to decline rapidly. People began selling her fake items, causing her to lose a lot of money. She continued, saying that the older members of the Heavenly Treasure Tower grew unhappy with her leadership. They even teamed up with outsiders to try and take over her family's assets. Luckily, they were still a bit scared of her sister's disappearance, so they hadn't fully made their move yet. She showed a map, pointing out that to escape the trouble, she pretended to expand their markets and traveled from Yellen Island to Lialai Island to hide for a while. She had planned to stay on Lialai Island for a few years, build up her strength, and then get revenge. But she never expected to find another person with a spirit channeling treasure physique here. She looked at Yichuan with hope in her eyes. "If you help me," she pleaded, "I can definitely get back control of the Heavenly Treasure Tower." Yichuan, however, seemed uninterested. He simply said, "I don't care about your tower's business. My only goal is to cultivate immortality." The woman's face fell, but then she remembered something. "You promised me," she quickly said, "that if I helped you secure the fleet, you'd get me a spot in the body-purifying spirit pool. You haven't changed your mind, have you?" The woman, with her long dark hair and gold accents on her white dress, smiled. She told him that the Heavenly Treasure Tower always kept its promises. But then her smile faltered a bit. The man with his stern face and dark beard asked, "But what?" She explained that even if he could enter the body-purifying spirit pool, getting rid of the bad energy from his body wasn't easy. She added that every year, only about half the people who tried it actually succeeded. She also mentioned that the older someone was, the higher the chance of it failing. She continued, "Uncle, you're not young anymore. Are you really sure you can succeed? Everyone only gets one chance in their life to enter the spirit pool. If you fail, you'll have to say goodbye to immortal cultivation forever." The man, looking determined, replied, "Even if it's only a 50% chance, it's enough for me to try." He then looked at her suspiciously and said, "However, hearing your tone." The woman simply said, "Exactly." The man with the mustache, who was the woman's uncle, wondered why she hadn't taken the miraculous elixir all this time. The woman told her uncle that not everyone was obsessed with becoming immortal like him. She explained that her wish was to do well in business and protect the Heavenly Treasure Tower her sister left behind. The uncle nodded slowly, understanding that everyone has their own own goals. The woman smiled brightly and asked if he agreed with her. He told her he needed 3 days to think about it and would give her an answer then. The woman happily agreed to wait for his news. He then said farewell and left. The woman hoped she hadn't misjudged him this time. After checking, he confirmed that Yin Yuzhen had told the truth about the dust-leaving pill. 3 days later, he met her again and agreed to her request. They made a deal. Before the spirit pool opened, he would help her collect treasures for her tower. In return, when the spirit pool opened, she would give him the dust-leaving pill. To show her sincerity, Yin Yuzhen handed over the title deed for Tingyu Tower. He didn't want to rely on anyone, so he took possession of it. Tingyu Tower was in a quiet valley, hidden deep in the mountains. During his year at Tingyu Tower, he completed 3 official voyages for Liulai Island. Each trip brought back chests full of treasure, amazing everyone on the island. He also earned a spot for a fleet in the Heavenly Treasure Tower. After that, he joined every voyage the Heavenly Treasure Tower fleet made. In just 1 year, Tianbao Lu earned as much as it had in the previous 5 years combined. He also gained respect and fear from everyone at the Heavenly Treasure Tower. He didn't neglect his cultivation either. In his free time, he diligently practiced the profound yellow heart-cleansing incantation. Then, something happened that made him very happy. The charge progress of his truth-returning ability suddenly sped up. Before, the truth-returning charge progress usually increased by 100% every 20 years, with a maximum of 200%. He had been cultivating for over a year, so it should have been around 6-7%. But to his surprise, it had reached 15%, nearly twice as fast. The man, with his long dark hair and beard, sat in deep thought, holding a book. He realized that the only thing he had been doing differently was cultivating the profound yellow heart-cleansing incantation. He figured this must be the reason for the accelerated progress of his truth-returning charge. He then checked his status screen. He noticed that not only had the charge progress increased, but his physiological and psychological ages had also grown significantly. His physiological age was now 42 out of 95, and his psychological age was 505 out of 1,210. Void transformation charge progress was at 115%, and the anchor charge progress was 51%. Time continued to pass as he cultivated. Soon, only 1 year remained until the body-purifying spirit pool opened. A woman with long dark hair and a gold and white dress approached him excitedly. She told him that Liulai Island had announced the list of masters needed by the immortal masters this time. 3 people sat around a table. One man with a mustache and goatee spoke. The materials needed this time are quite common, except for this star sea quicksand, which I haven't heard of. He believed this rare item was key to winning the competition. Another man with a long beard agreed, I have never heard of this thing either. He suggested they ask someone from the Manhua Chamber of Commerce for help. The man with the mustache and goatee looked concerned. He felt that the people they were dealing with were greedy and would make them pay a lot. But the bearded man was determined. He declared, no matter what, I must obtain the star sea quicksand. I am determined to get the spirit pool quota. The narrator explained that the Manhua Chamber of Commerce was not local. It came from a continent thousands of miles away, across the Kanjian Sea to Liulai Island, where the Heavenly Treasure Tower was located. It was said that an immortal master backed the chamber, allowing them to do business on this remote island. A woman with dark hair and a white dress, holding a tablet, spoke. She said they had a year to prepare, and the merchant walker from the Wanhua Chamber of Commerce would pass by the Kanjian Sea in 3 months. She could contact him then. The bearded man, however, thought they shouldn't rely solely on the Wanhua Chamber of Commerce. He pointed out that Liulai Island had many refugees from the Kanjian Sea, and some of them might know about the star sea quicksand. He also noted that other factions on the island would be looking for it, so they needed to monitor them closely. With the announcement of the materials needed for the body-purifying spirit pool, the news spread across Liulai Island. Even ordinary people who didn't care much about such things now knew that the major factions were searching for the star sea quicksand. One day, Xiao Heng, a young man with brown curly hair, came to Tingyu Tower. He sat across from Brother Lai, a man with long black hair and a mustache, who asked, I wonder what business this little brother has with me. Xiao Heng leaned in and asked, I heard that Brother Lai is also looking for star sea quicksand recently. Brother Lai confirmed, that is correct. I am old in age. If I want to cultivate, I can only rely on the body-purifying spirit pool. He then asked, why do you know this thing? Xiao Heng smiled, explaining, back when the immortal master descended upon our Dali, he promised that as long as we gathered the supplies he needed, he would take a group of people to the cultivation world. He revealed, among those supplies was star sea quicksand. Brother Lai looked surprised. Oh, why do I have no impression of that? Xiao Heng clarified, when it was announced to the world, the content on the list had already been reduced by a few items. As reserved quotas, they were distributed to the major noble families of Dali. He then stated, what my Prince of Zhenan's manor was assigned to collect was this star sea quicksand. Brother Lai, now intrigued, gestured with an open palm and said, speak, what are your conditions? Xiao Heng began by reminding Brother Lai of a past favor. Back then, you paid to bury Chengyu, which counts as a favor to me. He then explained his current hardship, saying, I shouldn't be doing this, but life on this Liulai Island is truly too hard to endure. He added, I don't have great abilities like Brother Lai, I'm currently still living in the slums. Brother Lai cut him off, saying, little brother, no need to say more, I understand your difficulties. He then made a clear commitment, I am determined to get this item. As long as you can provide a clue, ask for whatever you require, and I will do my best to satisfy it. Zio Heng smiled, saying, then I thank you in advance, brother. He then clarified the item's true nature. Actually, this item isn't rare, it's just that the immortal master's name for it is different from ours. He explained further, actually, the so-called Star Sea Quicksand is just meteorite iron from the sky. Brother Lai repeated, Star Sea Quicksand. So that's it. He then asked for more details, but will just any meteorite iron do? Are there any other special requirements? Zio Heng confirmed, there are, brother, there are. He then began to list the specific requirements. First, the appearance of the meteorite iron must be good. It won't do if the surface is pitted and uneven. Secondly, the overall weight of a single piece must be at least 50 jin. And then, Brother Lai listened carefully, committing every detail to memory. After hearing the conditions, Brother Lai nodded, saying, good, I know now. Speak, little brother, what do you want? Zio Heng smiled, explaining his simple desires. A decent courtyard, an easier job, and maybe a few servants to help manage the place. Brother Lai, with a surprised expression, couldn't help but laugh, finding the request too modest for a prince. He suggested Zio Heng ask for more, reminding him of his influence. Zio Heng, however, felt content with his current situation. He believed that sudden wealth could bring trouble, so he preferred to live a simple life. Brother Lai didn't push it. After some more friendly chat, Zio Heng prepared to leave. Brother Lai asked if he had any plans to cultivate, since he had come all this way. Zio Heng waved him off, saying he wasn't interested in immortal cultivation. He joked that reading about it just made him sleepy. After seeing Zio Heng off, Brother Lai went straight to the Heavenly Treasure Tower. There he met with a woman with long dark hair, wearing a golden dress. He told her that Star Sea Quicksand was meteorite iron. She found it simple but thought Zio Heng wasn't lying, though they still needed to check. The woman asked Brother Lai if he remembered that the merchant from the Manhua Chamber of Commerce was coming to Lialai Island soon. She suggested they could probe him for the truth about the meteorite iron. Brother Lai agreed, thinking it would be good if they could save some money. Brother Lai then said that they still needed to secretly buy meteorite iron that met the requirements. He added that not many people knew about this yet, but that might change soon. He continued, saying that when they bought it, they should mix it with other things to trick people and confuse the public. He also suggested they spread fake news that Star Sea Quicksand was actually stones from the Lialai fish, to make things even more confusing. The woman was impressed, telling Brother Lai that he was very clever. She said she only knew he had a special treasure-sensing ability, but she didn't expect him to have a plan for everything. She then asked Brother Lai what he did before. Brother Lai simply replied that he just taught people to read. The girl with the long dark hair pouted, clearly not believing Brother Lai's simple explanation. Humph, I don't believe it. Brother Lai, his back to her, gave instructions. All right, I'll leave these matters to you to handle. I still need to cultivate. Unless there is a special situation, do not disturb me. He added, by the way, handle the matter I promised Zio Heng as well. The girl wondered to herself, great auspiciousness. How can even a small matter like helping Zio Heng be great auspiciousness? Has my seeking fortune and avoiding evil malfunctioned? She thought about her unique ability. Though I don't have the ability to sense treasures like my sister, since I was young, I have been able to foresee the auspiciousness and ominousness of events. She realized, since meeting Uncle, my premonitions for every task he has assigned have shown signs of great auspiciousness. She continued her internal monologue. You must know, before meeting Uncle, I had never encountered a great auspicious event. Although I don't know what kind of achievements Uncle will have in the future, I trust my intuition and will do everything I can to help Uncle. With Yin Yuzhen's approval, the Tianbao Lu started working at full speed. When the market gossiped, I heard Star Sea Quicksand is a great treasure. Another person chimed in, are you crazy or am I crazy? A third person asked, I heard Star Sea Quicksand is just the story of the Lialai fish. Someone else said, guess if I believe that. It turned out the Heavenly Treasure Tower had spread a lot of fake news about Star Sea Quicksand. Knowing there might be a trap, other groups decided to wait and watch first. However, one group decided to buy the items first, believing they could resell them even if they were fake. They bought many items related to the rumors, which made other groups unable to buy anything. So these groups also joined the buying craze. A man in a purple robe told the shopkeeper, we'll take all the boss's treasures here. The shopkeeper, a man with a white beard, replied, they're already sold out. The man asked, what about horse treasure and ox treasure? The shopkeeper said, also sold out. For a time, prices on Lialai Island skyrocketed and chaos broke out. As the person who started all this, Yi Chuan just stayed quietly in the tower cultivating. 3 months later, Yin Yuzhen finally contacted the merchant leader of the Tianbao Chamber of Commerce. Early that morning, Yin Yuzhen and Yi Chuan took a small boat from the Heavenly Treasure Tower. They left Lialai Island and traveled north for dozens of miles to the sea area they had agreed upon. Suddenly, they saw a flying ark appear in the sky. A voice from the ark boomed, ha ha ha. Shopkeeper Yin, long time no see. The flying ark arrived above them, then slowly came to a stop on the water's surface. Inside, a man with a mustache and a woman with a veil stood together. The man looked at the woman and asked, Hen, seeing a flying ark for the first time must be a shock, right? He then looked away, a bit annoyed, thinking, what gives? No reaction at all. The Another man wearing a red robe approached them and greeted the mustached man. "Shopkeeper Yin, long time no see." Shopkeeper Yin replied, "Merchant Walker Wu, the last time we met was 3 years ago." Merchant Walker Wu then commented, "Time really flies. And this is..." Shopkeeper Yin introduced the veiled woman, an elder hired by our heavenly treasure tower. Merchant Walker Wu smiled and said, "A pleasure, a pleasure." He then turned serious. "Shopkeeper Yin, let's go check the goods first. I'm afraid that after this time, it will be difficult for us to meet again." Shopkeeper Yin, surprised, asked, "What do you mean by that? Has some unforeseen incident occurred?" Merchant Walker Wu explained, "I don't know the specific reason either. I just suddenly received a notification from headquarters a few days ago, saying all merchant walkers in the Kanjian Sea must cease all operations and return as soon as possible." Merchant Walker Wu explained that if he hadn't already scheduled this trade, he would already be on his way back. He stressed that they couldn't delay the transaction and needed to act quickly. Shopkeeper Yin, a woman with long dark hair and a gold dress, thought about the situation. She knew the Heavenly Treasure Tower on Light Island was successful because of the Manhua Chamber of Commerce. She worried about what would happen to her business now that the chamber was suddenly leaving the Kanjian Sea. She also wondered why her usual good luck in avoiding problems wasn't working this time. Merchant Walker Wu, a man with long brown hair and a beard, looked at her and asked, "Shopkeeper Yin." Shopkeeper Yin quickly snapped out of her thoughts. "Apologies, my mind wandered. Let us go see the goods now, please," she said, gesturing for him to follow. Shopkeeper Yin led Merchant Walker Wu into the ship's cabin, walking past many different goods. She pointed out 16 pairs of twin-sided jade, 23 pieces of coral, and 46 luminous pearls. Then she showed him 3 large pieces of star sea quicksand. Merchant Walker Wu's eyes widened. "What? Let me see," he exclaimed. Merchant Walker Wu, his long brown hair tied back, knelt to examine the star sea quicksand. He repeated, "Good, good, good," clearly impressed. He then looked up at Shopkeeper Yin, a man with a dark mustache and a calm expression. "Shopkeeper Yin, you have good luck this time. To think you actually collected such fine items as star sea quicksand." Shopkeeper Yin, standing beside the veiled woman, nodded in agreement, saying, "We can confirm that what Zio Heng said was correct." Merchant Walker Wu was very happy with the items from the Heavenly Treasure Tower. Since they wouldn't see each other for a long time, he invited the two of them to be his guests on the Manhua Chamber of Commerce's flying ark. After they ate and drank, Merchant Walker Wu led them to the ark's warehouse. He gestured around the large room filled with various items. "These are all things I bought while visiting different islands in the Kangyang Sea. Some are priceless, but I'm not sure what the others are for. I just bought them because they looked unique. If you're interested, you can pick a few things from among them." The veiled woman's eyes sparkled with excitement as she looked around. She thought, "Heavens, with my luck isn't coming here like a rat falling into a jar of rice." The man beside her, however, thought, "They are all normal treasures holding no interest for me." But seeing her eager look, "I suppose I'll accompany her for a stroll." The man told the woman, "You only have the time of 1 stick of incense." The woman, delighted, picked up a jade bracelet. "Uncle, look at this jade bracelet. It's so beautiful." The man replied, The material isn't bad." The man, holding a glowing blue orb, told the young woman that after 300 years, he no longer cared about normal treasures. He only cared about things that helped with immortal cultivation. Suddenly, a system notification popped up, asking if he wanted to charge the Kanghai Pearl Nascent, which was detected as a wondrous item of heaven and earth. He realized that the orb was indeed a wondrous item. It was a Kanghai Pearl Nascent that was still forming. He thought about how it was a wondrous item that was still in the process of incubating and hadn't fully formed yet. He knew he couldn't show how excited he was. He quickly put the pearl back on the table. He pretended not to care and looked at other things. The young woman asked, "Aren't you going to pick a few items?" It's rare for Merchant Walker Wu to be so generous. This opportunity won't come again. Another man, Merchant Walker Wu, put his hand on the first man's shoulder and said, "Shopkeeper Yin is right. There's no logic in entering a treasure mountain and returning empty-handed. Wouldn't that be looking down on this Wu? Go pick some more." The first man thought that it would be rude to refuse. The man, still looking a bit reluctant, pointed to 2 items on the table and said, "I'll just take these 2 items." Shopkeeper Yin, a man with a mustache and long hair, smiled and said, "Good eye, elder. I found this ancient tree jade statue on a desolate island in the northernmost part of the Kanjian Sea. This jade statue was worshipped by primitive tribes on the island for thousands of years and is quite miraculous." He continued, "If a normal person keeps it at home, it has the effect of calming the mind and strengthening the body." The man then pointed to the small blue box and asked, "And what about this one?" Shopkeeper Yin replied, "Oh, that one. I bought it from a fisherman on Liayan Island." The man, hearing Liayan Island, thought about it deeply. With the treasures chosen, the transaction was concluded. The Tianhua Chamber of Commerce gained many treasures, and Yin Yuzhen received a lot of gold, silver, and a few treasures. On their way back, even though Yin Yuzhen had made a good profit, a worried look still crossed her face. The man noticed and asked, "Are you worried about Heavenly Treasure Tower's future business?" Yin Yuzhen confirmed, "Yes, without the Wanhua Chamber of Commerce, we've lost a crucial sales channel." She added, "I don't know why the Wanhua Chamber of Commerce would suddenly withdraw from the Kanjian Sea." The two stood on a dock, looking out at the beautiful sunset over the water and a distant mountain. "When the cast reaches the mountain, there will be a way through. No need to worry overly much," the man said, reassuring his companion. Later, arriving at Liulai Island at night, he immediately returned to Tingyu Tower. He held a glowing blue orb in his hand. He thought, "My original intention for this trip was just to verify if the Star Sea ruin had meteorite iron. I didn't expect to obtain such a treasure. It's truly a pleasant surprise." He looked closely at the blue orb. "I just don't know what is special about this Kanghai pearl. Why is this tiny bead named Kanghai? Could it be that it truly contains an ocean inside?" Suddenly, he heard a loud banging sound. He thought, "It's not even dawn yet. Who is coming to disturb me at this hour?" He quickly pulled out a dagger, ready for whatever was coming. "Who?" he demanded. Suddenly, a voice from outside called out, "Brother Lai, it's me." The man with the long black hair, Brother Lai, looked up, a surprised expression on his face. "Zio Heng," he exclaimed. He quickly opened the door, inviting the younger man in. "Little brother, come in and talk," he said. Zio Heng, looking disheveled and frantic, rushed in, grabbing Brother Lai by the shoulders. "Brother Lai, this is bad. The fact that we smuggled ourselves here from the departed realm has leaked," he cried. Brother Lai, his eyes wide with alarm, demanded, "Who leaked the news?" Zio Heng shook his head, his face showing his fear. "I don't know either, but now everyone on the island knows we aren't natives of the cultivation world, but came here by smuggling through Tianbao Lu." He continued, his voice trembling, "It is said the Immortal Master is furious and plans to arrest and kill everyone." Brother Lai, however, remained calm, bringing his finger to his lips in a thoughtful gesture. "Don't worry, this isn't a major issue," he stated. Zio Heng, confused by his brother's composure, asked, "Big Brother Lai, why do you say that?" Brother Lai explained, his eyes sharp and calculating. "If the Immortal Master really wanted to kill us, our heads would have been separated from our bodies long ago. Why would he let us hear the news and discuss countermeasures?" He then revealed his theory, "As I see it, this matter isn't directed at us. The target of the person spreading the news is Heavenly Treasure Tower." Without explaining much to Zio Heng, Brother Lai quickly went to the Heavenly Treasure Tower. He knew that the various groups on the island already knew about the fake news and that it was their doing. He thought that these people weren't really mad. They just wanted some Star Sea quicksand. He also knew that they had already gathered enough of it. He decided they should just give them some of the quicksand and let them fight over it like dogs. He was sure they would start fighting among themselves soon. 3 days later, Heavenly Treasure Tower set up a meeting with the different groups on Liulai Island. They made some demands. Heavenly Treasure Tower agreed to give a part of the Star Sea quicksand, but the other groups had to give things of equal value in return. The quicksand would be divided based on how much each group gave. They also had to promise Heavenly Treasure Tower one spot in the body-purifying spirit pool. Brother Lai, with his long dark hair and beard, stood facing a man with similar dark hair, discussing the terms. This last condition wasn't too harsh, so after a short talk, both sides quickly agreed. After paying for dozens of pieces of meteorite iron, Heavenly Treasure Tower successfully got out of the messy situation. Brother Lai, with his dark hair and mustache, looked relieved. Another man with dark hair told him, "Brother Lai, everything is fine now." Almost immediately, the rumors about smuggling on the island disappeared completely. Time passed quickly, and the day for the spirit pool to open finally arrived. Zio Heng, a young woman with long dark hair, wearing a golden dress, excitedly handed a purple pill to Brother Lai. "Uncle, hurry up and take this dust-leaving pill," she said. Brother Lai, with his dark hair and beard, looked at the pill. He had waited a long time for this day. He knew that after today, he could get rid of the bad energy in his body and finally start on the path of becoming an immortal. After taking the dust-leaving pill, given to him by Yin Yuzhen, Brother Lai entered the spell formation in the center of Liulai Island. He was under the guidance of special personnel. There were 13 people in total who entered the central spell formation. All of them were teenagers, except for him. In an instant, their surroundings completely changed. In a flash, they went from Liulai Island to deep mountains. Trees were lush and green, and distant peaks were wreathed in mist. Mountain ranges rose and fell, and a rainbow arched across the sky. The mountain peak was hidden in thick clouds and mist, nowhere to be seen. The group climbed up the stone stairs for 4 hours without stopping. These youths all had impressive physiques after climbing for so long. They didn't even pant once. Brother Lai, on the other hand, was already panting heavily and could barely manage not to fall behind. After another 2 hours, they finally reached the summit. The summit was just a small clearing, making the crowd feel a bit crowded. This peak was the highest point among the mountains. Looking around, there was nothing but a vast, white sea of clouds. The wind howled, the sea of clouds rolled, and occasionally mountaintops revealed themselves like islands. A man with long dark hair and a beard, wearing a long blue robe, stood among the group. He looked at the vast clouds and asked, "How is this scenery?" A man with long, light brown hair, wearing a dark blue robe, smiled. He was Liulai Island Guardian, Immortal Master He. The group of teenagers greeted him, "Greetings, immortal master." The group of teenagers stood on a mountain peak, looking out at the beautiful scenery. One of them exclaimed, "The scenery here is superb. It is truly an immortal holy land." Another added, "I've never seen such a wondrous sight. It makes one's heart surge with excitement." Immortal Master He, with his long dark hair and blue robe, turned to the group. He began to tell them a story. "When I first came to Liulai Island, the height of this peak was at the bottom among the mountains, far below the sea of clouds." He then asked the group, "Did you know that the mountains and rivers of the world can also grow taller gradually, just like people?" One of the teenagers, a young man with dark hair, looked surprised and asked, Is that really true? Could it be that these great mountains and rivers are also living things?" Immortal Master He smiled, his eyes gleaming. He explained, "Some peaks seem towering, but their fate has actually ended, and they cannot advance another step in their entire lives." He continued, "Some are merely small earthen mounds right now, but they have infinite potential. Who is to know if, in some years, they won't grow into pillars that support the heavens?" He then gestured towards the vast landscape before them. Just like this Sheaway mountain back then, it was unremarkable, but in just a few decades, it can now look down upon all the other small mountains. He continued, explaining that most peaks are like the countless others beneath the sea of clouds, destined to only serve as a backdrop for the grander peaks above. He then asked, "If mountains are like this, what about people?" He told them that they were lucky to be there that day, as he would help them remove the bad energy from their bodies. He added that whether they could step onto the immortal path or achieve great things would depend on their own efforts and luck. He then told them, "No matter what happens in the future, today you must go all out. I have said all I need to say, you all go now." One of the young men with dark hair and a purple robe stepped forward and asked, "Immortal Master, may I ask where this body-purifying spirit pool is located?" The Immortal Master pointed towards a distant spot and declared, "It's right there." Another young man with a green robe looked shocked and asked, "Immortal Master, surely you are joking." The Immortal Master, with long dark hair and a blue robe, sighed, his hand glowing with a blue aura. Suddenly, the head of the man in the green robe flew off, blood gushing from his neck, as it soared high into the sky above the mountain peak where the group stood. The other disciples screamed in horror, realizing the man's head had been severed. The Immortal Master stood calmly amidst the chaos. Terrified, the remaining disciples immediately prostrated themselves, begging the Immortal Master to spare their lives. They want more content right now. Check out Dungeon Crawler Carl for completely free. This series has 135 hours of pure dungeon chaos. Grab the first book with the link in the description.